Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 16th, 2021 meeting of the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Trustees. At this time, we would ask that those in attendance please keep their videos off and audio muted until they're presenting information or speaking in public comment. We're offering translation services for our Spanish-speaking attendees. To access translation, please click on the globe at the bottom of your screen and then the language. At this time, we would like to ask if anyone who needs translation, please click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a nuestra junta ordinaria. Esta junta va a estar siendo interpretada al español. Si necesitan servicios del intérprete, por favor, de la lista de participantes, encuentren su nombre y levanten la mano.
Okay. The board did meet in closed session prior to this open session meeting. We talked about review and possible action on employment, dismissal or discipline of district employees. And also we had a conference with our labor negotiators, agency designated representative, Kristen Newland, our director of human resources, regarding our associations, particularly SLCTA. Is there a consensus on the order of business for the board? I'm seeing a consensus on the order of business. Let's move on to item number 5.03, approval of minutes for February 2nd, 2021. Would someone like to make a motion? Motion by Mrs. Sheffer and second by Mr. Buckman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Ellen? Hold on. Mark? Yes?
Yes.
Eve? Yes? Catherine? Yes? Evelyn?
Yes.
Yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 6.01, student representatives to the board. I understand that we have Rosalie Ronzon from Morrow Bay High School. Rosalie, are you there? No, we're not seeing Rosalie. Okay, is there a?
No, I'm here. 1 second, sorry.
Rosalie, there you are.
Yeah.
There you are. Hi, Rosalie.
So, hi, sorry, I just hopped out of the pool from practice. Basically what we got going on is we're really excited to hear the news that we might be going back to school. So we've kind of, in ASB, really been running with that. Obviously, still tomorrow, we have our online Wellness Wednesdays, where tomorrow, this is one of my personal favorites, even though it's kind of simple, is just setting a goal that you want to do. So just anything going on, for me, it's gonna be learning a new song on piano, or I know a friend is trying to bake croissants, and it's just kind of nice to have something to get kids motivated, especially during these times. But a lot of us are really stoked about potentially going back to school. So in ASB, we've really been talking through posters, decorations, different ways to engage the freshmen. We know that obviously a lot of our students, or a solid portion of our students, have never set foot on campus before. So we've kind of started talking about drawing out maps and things like that, having fun little big cutouts of upperclassmen pointing ways to go, because as you know, Morrow Bay is heavily under construction right now too. So just trying to find ways to get kids really excited about Morrow Bay. We really see this as an opportunity to reset the culture here. And so we've kind of just been working through things like that and trying to get kids excited. Kids are excited, and making sure that everyone feels like they're just coming home if we get the chance to go back in the spring. Any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Rosalie? Mark? No, Mark's just giving you a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Rosalie. As always, you can, I'm seeing the gate behind you. As always, you can stick around and participate in the meeting. Or we understand that you have lots of work to do. It looks like you've got some swimming to continue to do. And so we really appreciate your reports. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have either Ben or a representative from San Luis Obispo High School? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Let's move on to item number 6.02, Pacheco Elementary Program Highlights. Dr. Prater or Mr. Mayfield, I think you're going to be introducing Mr. Jones.
Yeah, hi, my pleasure, Mr. Unger, to introduce Principal Chris Jones at Pacheco. And he's got a recorded update on what's happening at Pacheco Elementary. Mr. Jones.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes, estimada mesa directiva y liderazgo del distrito. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about the great things that are happening at Pacheco. At Pacheco, we focus on a rich academic experience for all of our students as they learn in both Spanish and English. And within this, we feel it's critical that our students learn about their civic responsibilities as well. And like other schools, we talk about the importance of how we treat one another and good citizenship. At the beginning of last year, we introduced what we call our Panther Principles, which outline how we should act at school and beyond. And these basic principles include being respectful, responsible, safe, friendly, and kind. In combination with this, we talk about what it means to be a good citizen in our community. In third grade in particular, our students learn about the structure of government at the local, state, and national levels, and how they can participate in their communities and government. One of the benefits of these current circumstances is that the use of video conferencing and remote presentations has become quite ubiquitous. So with that, our third grade team of Lana Tabuenca, Margarita Zatt, and Diana Tabarez reached out to elected officials both locally and at the national level to present to our students. So this year, our third graders participated in a Zoom meeting with San Luis Obispo Mayor Heidi Harmon, and also had a video presentation from Representative Salud Carbajal. And both these opportunities, the students were able to ask questions and hear from their elected officials on what it means to be a good citizen. So with this, I'd like to play a video that our third grade team created that shows a quick clip and some images from the presentations from these elected officials, and then has some of our students talking about what they have learned about being a good citizen. It is bilingual, so there are subtitles for the Spanish portion, so make sure that your video is on to see that here. And so without further ado,
Hello, Pacheco Elementary School. Hola, Escuela Pacheco. Thank you again for inviting me to join you. As you know, this is Congressman Salud Carbajal, and I'm glad to visit with you today and answer some of the questions that you posed.
¿Qué significa ser un buen ciudadano? Respetar otros si tienen diferente color de piel o son diferentes a ti, respetan ellos. Amable, ayuda a otras personas cuando están hurt. Y luego, responsable, siguen las leyes y entienden que hay reglas.
You can speak with other people with other languages, and they can understand you, and you can understand them. And you can play with them, and you can be friends, and you can be friends with everybody.
Haces cosas que no son ilegal, recoger el basura en la playa o decir gracias o perdóname. Es muy importante votar cuando estás 18 o más grande.
To be a good citizen, be a good friend, help people in our city, take care of
your our family wear a mask when we go somewhere. Yo aprendí 4 cosas. Yo aprendí que aprende de tu gobierno, haz cosas de voluntario, donar a bancos de comida y cuando cumplas 18 años, vota. Yo aprendí de Heidi Harman y Salud Carvajal que es importante de ser una ciudadana activa. Marca una diferencia en su comunidad. Okay, what I learned is that being a good citizen is helping others. Like if somebody has no money, you can give them money. If somebody's by themselves, you can ask them to play. Everybody be kind to each other. Be kind to everybody. And if you are watching this video right now, you are a good citizen. I believe in you. I believe that you are a good citizen.
So I don't think, yes, round of applause for our students there. I don't think I need to say anything else, but I think we're in good hands with our future leaders here. I do want to share one quick note because I know that some of our school board members were involved in letting us know about a family in need. Our last presenter, Dominic, I'm sharing this with the family's permission. His mother was in the hospital right around the time of winter break. And I know that some of our school board members reached out to Dr. Prater, who reached out to me, and we're able to just provide some support for the family. And mom is at home, fully recovered for the most part, out of a coma, out of the ICU, and doing much better. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you for the time.
Well, thank you very much. Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Jones, aside from wow? Well, thank you, Chris. This has just been great. And I just want to say, I think that we have about 323 people watching our board meeting tonight. And that means, according to Dominic, we're all good citizens. So thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 6.03, Morro Bay High School FFA farm improvements. And Dr. Prater, is that you? Are you introducing this one?
Well, I don't see Mr. Mayfield stepping up, but I do know Mrs. Flynn or Miss Flynn quite well and the great work she does at Morro Bay High School. So tonight she'd like to talk to you about the work that they're doing with their FFA program. So Miss Flynn, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you. I'm going to introduce my 2 students and they're going to talk to you guys tonight. I'd like to introduce you to Marissa Gomez and Kat Meza, and they're going to talk to you about what we're here for.
Hi, so my name is Marissa Gomez. I am a junior this year, and today we'd like to talk to you a bit about the school farm and what we've been doing over the past 3 years as far as improving.
We just lost, Melissa she somehow got muted. Melissa, you got muted, Marissa, I'm sorry. There we go. Oh, yeah, oh no.
I'm also here with Kat Meza, who is a freshman this year, and we are ready to show you guys our video.
Go ahead and show the video. Kat's having a problem trying to get her camera or her microphone on. So
there's Kat.
There she is.
Hello, my name is Catalina Meza. I'm a freshman here at Morrow Bay High School, and I have been a member here of the FFA for a few months now.
All right, so we have Ms. Flynn, do we have a presentation?
Yeah, I think they have a video that we sent along that should be ready to go.
Okay.
I shared it with
Mandy, can you start the video for the Morro Bay FFA program?
Absolutely. One moment, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marissa, what year are you?
This is my third year in FFA, but I'm a junior this year.
Great, fantastic. Have you been to the Mid-State Fair? We'll catch up later.
Throughout our diligent construction work, many projects have been occurring on our farm year-round. Brendan Taylor and Lainey Costa have been taking care of 4 Nigerian dwarf goats for 3 years now. They successfully bred 2 of them last January and had 4 baby goats last summer. A project that has been permanently present at the farm are the chickens. Having the chickens on the farm gives freshmen an opportunity to take care of them as their SAE. In the past, we have also sold the chickens' fresh eggs to teachers on campus, something that many teachers used to look forward to when an FFA member walked into their classroom.
Over the last 3 years, the Morrow Bay FFA farm has seen extraordinary changes. We would like to thank everyone who has helped us with everything on our school farm. Our ag students and parents have helped to build 2 out of the 3 new chicken pens. They helped put in a new irrigation system on the farm, and they have kept all of the grass mowed and weeds whacked. We also have built new fencing around the pig unit, and we had lockers put in on the back side of the pig unit to store feed.
We would also like to thank our Aggie backers for donating $20,000 to help us with improvements on our farm. With that money, we were able to level out the land for our beef pens, build new beef pens for our cattle, and place brand new footing to keep them looking nice. We wouldn't have been able to improve our farm without their generous support. Lastly, we would like to thank the district for paying for the old beef barn removal to soon put in a brand new one, for the redoing of the septic system for the pig unit, for us to re-weld the gates in the hog unit, and for redoing the roof of our pig barn. Thank you for helping us improve our farm. We have seen a great change within the last 3 years.
There has been so much progress, but there is always something else that needs to be done. For example, we still need to finish the chicken pens that were started this summer. We also plan to build wash racks so it's easier to wash our fair animals. New storage for the beef unit and pig unit will be obtained. We will always continue to compost and mow the farm to make it look as neat as possible. Lastly, we want to get a squeeze chute and a scale for our beef animals, as well as creating an alleyway for them to keep them contained. Thank you again to everyone for your immense support to make our farm the best it can be.
Thank you, Thank you, Ms. Flynn. Thank you, Catalina and Melissa. Ms. Flynn, do you have anything else you'd like to add? We're just so excited to see what's going on at Morrow Bay High School and with the Ag Department and FFA, which is just great.
Thank you so much. We really, we just really want to say thank you. We've had a lot of things changing out there, a lot of improvements, and we want to thank everybody at the district as well as our Aggie backers for helping us out with that. And hopefully over the next couple of years, you'll see more things starting to improve and get built and make that little plot of land that we have back there something we can really be proud of our students.
Yeah, I don't think we can forget to thank the Aggie backers. So thanks to all the Aggie backers. If there are any watching out there, we really appreciate it. Are there any board members who have questions for Ms. Flynn? Okay, thank you so much, all 3 of you. We really appreciate it and good luck.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item number 7.01, correspondence. And at the time of the publication of the agenda, there was no formal correspondence to the board. Let's move on to item number 7.02, public comment. Now, board, I need to go to you. We have extensive public comment for this evening. We have, I believe, at least 10 pages of written public comment. We don't know how many people are going to want to speak tonight. So I'm going to take a poll of the board and see whether the board has an interest in keeping the public comment at 20 minutes or do what we did last meeting and allow everyone who wishes to speak to the board and address the board. So Ellen, what are you suggesting?
Once again, in keeping with our current, well, more long-standing now past practice, I'd like to hear from everyone, but I would I would add the caveat that we strictly adhere to our 3-minute rule for spoken comments and our 450-word rule for anything written, and not, you know, not exceed those limitations.
Right.
For comments.
Board,
that's my thought.
okay. So I would concur with Ellen. Is there anybody who would like to see us do this differently? Otherwise, is there a consensus of the board that we will hear from everyone who wishes to present? Okay, I'm seeing everyone saying that. So I'm going to read a statement right now. At this point in the agenda, the board welcomes comments on matters of district interest. The board will listen but cannot engage in discussion or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Generally, this section of the agenda is for individuals or a representative of a group to address the board on issues not listed on the agenda. Speakers who wish to discuss items on the agenda are requested to wait until that item comes before the board. However, comments may be given on agenda items at this time if it's not possible for a speaker to stay until the agenda item is heard by the board. If you submit written comments on a topic, you will not be allowed to also speak on that topic. Comments or correspondence submitted anonymously will not be accepted. You can contact us via the public comment request form prior to the meetings or to any meeting, or while the meeting is in session. If you wish to speak during the meeting, click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and select raise your hand. When your name is called, you may restart your video if you wish and unmute your audio. If you need assistance with your video, please let us know and we'll attempt to fix it. If you have a problem with your audio, please click on the thumbs down icon and we will attempt to assist you. Another couple of things just to remember, there is no ceding of time. So each individual gets 3 minutes. You may not give your 3 minutes to someone else to extend their time. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, a limit of approximately 450 words in written comment that equates to about 3 minutes of oral comment. Any portion of your comment extending past the 450 word limit may not be read aloud due to time restrictions. All written comments that are not read into the record will be made part of meeting minutes, provided that such comments are received prior to the end of the meeting. Please be aware that written public comments, including your name, may become public information. Now, also remember that you may agree or disagree with a speaker or a comment that you've heard by using your thumbs up or thumbs down. And we'll keep track of that and we'll report whether we see any of those after each comment. We'll try to report out the numbers of people we're seeing doing that. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers will read the written public comments and then we'll move on to the oral public comments. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
For item number 7.02, we have just one comment, and that is by Rami Shah. Fall, winter sports should accommodate conditioning and team effort. Sports such as girls volleyball was completely canceled and written off. We understand the response to COVID, but please allow teams to gather and at least condition to have a mock season they can still be proud of. There is money set aside for coaches and several parents are willing to volunteer. I realize the drama surrounding teachers and others. That aside, the students need to be the focus. Their efforts, especially the graduating seniors, need to be recognized and not dismissed. It would especially place Morrow Bay High School in good public view. Please don't write off fall, winter sports.
Thank you. I believe that's the only written comment we have for 7.02. We do have a lot of comments on item 10.01, and we'll get to those at that point. Is there anybody who would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Please raise your hand and let us know right now. We're not seeing anyone. So we're going to move on to item number 8.01, business and budget update. Mr. Pinkerton.
So yeah, for the board to know, just really quickly, most of my focus right now has been on the potential reopening. So working with our transportation team to open up any transportation possible for students. Been working closely with all three of our key childcare providers. So that'd be the city of San Luis Obispo, Morro Bay, and the YMCA, and what that transition might look like should we return to school. And then lastly, looking at our food service department. So, with changes and possible some levels coming back, some not, have been working with Erin and her team to ensure that we continue to feed families, whether they're virtual or in person, as we move forward.
Thank you. Ryan, can you just review for everybody that's watching about how many meals do you think we've served since September, just roughly?
100,000. I mean, it's been a lot, right? So several thousand every single week. So it's, and the hope will be that we'll be that Erin's focus right now is that we'll be able to feed the kids, since it's kind of a half-day program throughout, as well as provide the meal boxes to families. So she's working on, keeping that going as we progress through the rest of the school year.
Right, and just a reminder to everyone, he's talking about Mrs. Primer, who is our Director of Food Services. Thank you, Ryan.
Sure.
Let's move on to item 8. Well, actually, I should see board. Do you have any questions for Mr. Pinkerton? Not seeing anyone. Let's move on to item 8.02, Ed Services Update. Ms. McGrath. Ms. McGrath, we're not getting your audio. Hold on just a moment, please.
Hear me now?
Yeah. I think you're good, Kim.
Okay, great. Does that do it? For some reason, I'm having to test it each time. So yeah, I'm happy to give you some updates. Wanted to clarify one thing. SLO County does remain in the purple tier. Based on our adjusted rate, you'll know that a lot of us heard about being jumping kind of into the red tier for 1 week last week. However, we do have to sustain that for 2 weeks. And then as you've heard, schools then need to be in red for 5 days and have our safety plan approved. So we are kind of remaining in the purple right now. Site walks, so this kind of crosses over a little bit with Mr. Pinkerton, but Holly Warwick, as well as Mr. Pinkerton, Mr. Bonin, have been conducting site walks in order to look at facilities and make sure that each facility is understanding the COVID procedures, policies, and regulations, and are in compliance with that. So we'll be finishing up with that here on the 18th. Also, just want to let everyone know we continue to keep updates and information on our COVID website. One of the things we added was kind of a COVID concern button. If there's issues that are being seen around COVID compliance, you're welcome to let us know about those there. We're trying to just be proactive, as the state mentioned that they will have one of those. So instead of working through the state, we have that addition here right at our school district. We have been conducting some grade level forums. So just want to do a big thank you to Chelsea Smiley and Michelle Cass, who've offered some kind of field trips, so to speak, for people to observe the in-person offerings that are taking place. As you'll remember, we have over 1,000 students that come in person for different amounts of time, and around 700 students that are participating in athletic events. So it gives the opportunity sometimes for people to see what it actually looks like and to see it real, and then to have kind of a panel discussion and a video for people that have not participated kind of in the field trip offering, to be able to see and to ask questions so that we can help each other as we're heading towards reopening it at some point. Just an athletics update, just to let you know, we are required to follow the athletic guidelines that are implemented, really specific guidelines that come out about purple tier sports, red tier sports, conditioning, competitions, etc. Our athletic directors have done a great job of following up with students and parents, and big shout out to our coaches and students also, who have really worked to comply with all the guidelines. But we do have girls golf and girls tennis and swim and cross country that have been able to now condition and now even compete. So it's great to see that. Unfortunately, we have really limited transportation opportunities. As you know, we have talked about that with the spacing requirements that really, extremely limits our opportunities for transportation. So a big thanks to the parents that dive in and help with that. Also, unfortunately, we're not allowed to have spectators. So it gives a good opportunity for students, and it is nice progress. Not quite like we would love to see it one day, but it is, of course, moving forward with that. We've been working on kind of unifying a daily health screening. We did find a great solution through Parent Square. We're looking to start that implementation for all staff and students on February 22nd. Unfortunately, we do have to kind of implement it for everyone, whether they're in virtual or in person, but it is that great reminder about the health symptoms to continue to look for, and that people should make sure they're not coming to work or school if they have any of the listed symptoms. So we'll work on unifying that. Just a quick update on vaccinations. We heard from public health, and they do have a task force. As we've talked about before, health care workers were prioritized first, and then those 75 and over. Next, those 65 and over within our county. We were notified that just a really small special ed group was able to go be vaccinated. It's really those special education teachers that are working with students in person, especially with some of our extreme students that may not be able to consistently wear a mask. So there was some concerns or misunderstandings that we're kind of holding back on that as a school district, or that we're determining. And really, we follow the lead of, as soon as public health informs us that we can send someone, then of course we do that. I know they're tackling it as soon as they can. They mentioned they're getting around 2,000 in supply, and they'll continue to tackle that 65 above group, and then hopefully be able to keep going with educators soon. I know we're all really anxious for that to continue. So we have more information coming during the reopening recommendation that I'll be happy to share.
Is there any board member that has any questions for Ms. McGrath? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item 8.03, Measure D update. Mr. Pinkerton?
Yeah, so there's a few items tonight on the board agenda, a couple for GMPs that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then this is also the last leaseback project at our two comprehensive high schools that will have been completed. And so we're asking the board tonight to end the lease for those. You'll see that. And so that project was the pool and fields project at San Luis Obispo High School. All the other current projects that are happening at both high schools, Morrow Bay and SLO High, are both part of the design build delivery model that we've progressed with. So we'll have that right up pretty soon on the agenda.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from board members for Mr. Pinkerton? All right, seeing no one, let's move on to item number 9.01. This is a resolution. This is resolution 17/2021. It's Measure D, San Luis Obispo High School new pool and fields leaseback, termination of leases with Acme Construction Company. Mr. Pinkerton?
So yeah, as I talked about earlier, this is actually the completion of the leaseback project for the pool and the fields. As Kim pointed out, it's really awesome that we have this beautiful pool now at San Luis Obispo High School, like we do at Morrow Bay High, and kids are actually able to use it, as part of a sport that can happen during this purple tier. So tonight, we just need to pass this resolution, and then shortly after that, you'll see on the board agenda, there's the actual termination of the lease and quick claim deed that needs to be approved by the board.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion or both. Dr. Eisengrath Rogers, are you making a motion?
I would love to make a motion about that, because I'm very emotional about it. It's yes. So I'm very much, I'm delighted to be able to introduce this, because this is right around the corner and we see it every day, and we've seen it growing, and the pool is ready to go, and I'm sure the kids are ready to dive right in. So
Okay, so
so moved.
we have a motion by Catherine and a second by Marilyn. Is there any board discussion on this? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back for a vote. Catherine, Dr. Eisendrath Rogers?
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
Ellen, Mrs. Sheffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame?
Yes.
Mrs. Dogler Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes, or resolution passes 7-0. Let's move on to item number 10.01, which is the superintendent's recommendations to reopen schools. And what I'd like to do with this is I'd like to have the staff make their recommendations and make their presentation. And of course, board members typically will ask questions during that. Then we'll go to public comment, and we have extensive public comment on this topic. We'll close public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board. And I just want to remind everybody, we do have extensive public comment, and at 7 o'clock this evening or thereabouts, the board will take a short break. So Dr. Prater, would you like to begin on this topic, please?
Mr. Unger, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is begin by starting with the reason why we're here tonight. And that has to do with the California Department of Public Health came out on January 14th with revised guidelines to reopen schools. And we have been living under the previously approved board school reopening plan back in November. And that was aligned to the safety guidelines, the best available science we had at the time. On January 14th, the CDPH came out with their revised guidelines to reopen schools. And then last Friday, the Center for Disease Control, CDC, came out with their own reopening schools guidelines, which primarily align, but are, I think, more aggressive in their approach to reopening schools. Nevertheless, what I'd like to do, because this is such an important topic to so many, that I'd like to start with Mrs. McGrath sharing with you a comparison chart of what the previous guidelines look like versus what the current ones look like. Mrs. McGrath.
You bet, Ms. Dawson, if you don't mind displaying that. I'd be happy to kind of show you, as you know, the information changes in an ongoing manner. So this document here that I believe Mr. Unger came across really showed a great comparison of our previous guidance and then the new guidance that came out January 14th. So the first topic you look at is kind of the school reopening process. So what did we hear from public health? It started talking about where schools could reopen within the red tier, and then it had the elementary waiver system. So when you look at the new guidance, they really made a big change. They said that schools in a tier other than purple can reopen 5 days after the LEA completes this safety report, which we do have ready to go. It said that elementary schools that grades K through 6 may reopen in the purple if the case rate for the county is below 25 per 100,000. Our county is in that category and has been for a little bit. When you look at the next category, they talk about the COVID-19 safety plan. So really they talked about all schools needing to complete it and post it. Like I said, Resolute has done a great job of helping us with that, and we are prepared in that area. So next is the symptom and exposure screening. So they added some more clarification to say that to implement the symptom and the exposure screening for all staff and students, and that's the active health screening that I talked to you about that we are ready to implement. In all of our pilot classes, we have tried different things, and now we're ready to settle on one that we can use district-wide. When you look at the next piece, face coverings, they really, have taken a stronger stance when it comes to face coverings. They've included more students And they're really talking about how we teach, reinforce, and have even talked about more specific information about kids that are not complying and how we can respond to that. Next, they've looked at classroom space, and spacing is one of the key components that we definitely hear about, is that they did talk about, distancing students 6 feet, which we have heard about quite often. Then they talked about real specifically what we do if there's a confirmed or a suspected case at a school site. So in close contact, it does give very specific information, a confirmed case, etc. As we have had, around 1,000 students back, we've really been following these procedures, communicating clearly with public health, with the site leaders, identifying the close contacts, and closing cohorts when needed. If you don't mind moving on down to page 3. Thank you. Next, it talked about reporting positive cases. And really, it's talking about an emphasis on notifying our local health officer. So we've done have a good relationship there, communicate openly, freely. They've been a great guidance as they have information. We communicate with them and they provide guidance for us as well. The next category, when you look at testing, some more clarification came out there about any school currently open being subject to minimum testing requirements. So you can see there how it talks about the standards for testing, how we're responding. It's going to actually give even more specific information about outbreaks. So it further defined outbreaks to being 3 or more confirmed cases, and it's really looking for links, okay, not transmission outside of a school setting. A few more categories here. It talks about how do you determine school closures. So it talks about, within this 14-day period, really an outbreak. It gives real specific percentages that help guide us to know when we would need to close a classroom, when we would need to close a school, and what we would have to do to determine if we were closing an entire district. The next category being cleaning and disinfection. You'll remember that, just as we learn more and more about the science and as we learn more about the virus, a lot has come forward about cleaning and disinfection, and they've really kind of lightened their message around this. So they used to be real tight at the beginning about what needed to happen, talking about that we should clean and disinfect frequently. And really they've kind of changed their thinking there some. That's talked about that there's not as much of a need to do that, and even that there's some risk of doing that with students around. That they've talked about that we need to make sure we're cleaning and disinfecting if there's a positive case, but they're not finding as much transmission on surfaces. The next one with transportation, like I just mentioned with athletics, we still have that spacing requirement. So that really gives us very limited very limited transportation opportunities because of the spacing. It's been interesting, band and choir, who would have thought, right, that you're talking about band and choir in these circumstances, but, because of the spread with droplets, band and choir really has been a topic that has been discussed often. So it does talk about that it needs to occur outdoor, that is permitted, and it gives real specific guidelines about spacing and mask, et cetera, in order to ensure safety. As I mentioned earlier, there's very specific, you can see it linked there to youth recreational sport guidance. So, that's a whole another document with a lot of specific information there. They've created tiers to say what students can do, what policies and procedures they need to follow, et cetera. Again, playground equipment, that kind of goes along with the better understanding about disinfection, talk about really you only need to clean it on a routine maintenance schedule, that you should really emphasize hand hygiene, right? Students cleaning their hands before and after play, before and after sharing, et cetera. But kind of reducing the original thinking and the thinking we've heard all along with disinfection. So the last one there, you'll see reporting in-person instruction. We did start doing that in January. we report, how many students per site, and that's information that we did start doing at that point. And then you can see their vaccination. That public health said we, recommend all persons eligible that you receive the vaccination. Under 16 are not eligible at this time. And then they gave some more, real specific guidance around that. So since January 14th, as Dr. Prater mentioned just on Friday, CDC did release some additional information that is pertinent to this. It's a really large document. So I just kind of looked at what are some of the key points that they brought up. So CDC, to me, some of the key things, they stated that reopening of schools should be a priority and felt that it can be accomplished, even in areas where community spread is high, they said. They really emphasized 5 key risk mitigation strategies, they call it: mask, physical distancing, hand washing, and they kind of group that with respiratory etiquette, right? Kind of teaching cough into your elbow type of thing. Cleaning, contact tracing, with isolation and quarantine. So those are the 5 areas, and we have looked at those and have addressed each of those 5 areas. They also created their own tiered system. Seems like everyone kind of has a tiered system right now. It doesn't exactly match with CDPH. So we are kind of checking on that and trying to get some clarification about that tiered system. CDC did say K-12 schools should be the last setting to close over all other non-essential businesses, and they should be the first to open. With asymptomatic testing, which we have been conducting with everyone that is in person, they said you can use screening testing. You can use it for staff and students, and you should prioritize those that are closest, of course, in person to students. With vaccinations, they mentioned vaccinations are one layer of mitigation, but they did say they're not required to reopen schools. So like I said, their key mitigation strategies: mask, physical distancing, hand washing with respiratory etiquette, cleaning and ventilation, and contact tracing. And then they as well mentioned kind of the physical distancing and emphasized the 6 feet. So just wanted to give you that update as well that came out since the public health guidance. I think I'll hand it back over to Dr. Prater.
Thank you, Ms. McGrath. I appreciate that. I'd like to, if I could, transition to the latest version of our COVID-19 update, so we could take a look at trends and infection rates across our nation and state and local community. So this was updated last Friday, and I wanted to go through it with you prior to reading my recommendation. Mandy, could you go ahead? Yeah, so the purpose of this, as all of you know, is to update you on national and state trends, as well as what's happening in our local community, and then tie it to our reopening timeline. I created a timeline. This was growing very big, so I synthesized it into the big, what I consider to be the big one. So we closed our schools due to COVID on March 16th, 2020. On January 29th, Senate Bill 98 came out, and they basically said within this Senate bill that schools should reopen as soon as possible, according to the guidance from the Public Health Department. And that is what we did. July 16th came around, and the guidance did not align to reopening. So the board made a decision to maintain distance learning for the first semester of the school year through winter break. On September 2nd, the California Department of Public Health and the CDC revised their safety and health guidelines. September 4th, the governor put out the blueprint for a safer economy, and that has the tiered system that we anchored our metrics to. November 17th, the board made a decision to reopen our schools in January if we were in the red tier, according to the blueprint for a safer economy, plus 21 days. January 14th, as we just learned, the California Department of Public Health came out and revised their guidelines again. And then February 16th, we're here tonight to rediscuss reopening our schools, reconsider reopening our schools in March, according to the revised safety guidelines, not just from CDPH, but also from CDC. Next slide, please. So what are we seeing in the trends? So nationally, you can see that we continue to see increased cases across the United States, as well as unfortunate number of deaths. In California, we are seeing, as it is across the country, a downward trend in both cases and in deaths. And the rate of change is decreasing. So we are seeing fewer infections. We are seeing fewer cases. However, we're still paying close attention, of course. Next slide. This particular chart I wanted to bring to your attention. If you go to the top, Mandy, with the cursor, and you look at the yellow, which is new cases. Yes, that's it. And as we were in November making this decision to reopen, we really weren't sure if we were going to see that holiday spike. But sure enough, we did. And so we found ourselves in January at a peak of COVID infection cases and new cases in particular. And as of February, as of last Friday, you can see a pretty dramatic mid-month drop. And so we expect this downward trend to continue. And then if you look at the bottom chart, you'll see the adjusted case rate. And that reflects the number of cases per 100,000 adjusted for the volume of testing that we see in our community. And so the adjusted rate is what we're paying close attention to. And it has gone from a January 11th 46 adjusted rate of 46 per 100,000. And as of last Friday, it was 19.3. And as I learned today in speaking with Dr. Borenstein, it's down to 15. And so we are seeing a decrease in case rates as well as new cases. So this is a positive thing. Next slide, please. So we have the California blueprint for a safer economy. We have the tiers. We're still in the purple tier. Now, this we suspect, given the downward trend, that we are going to transition into the red tier fairly soon. Maybe it might be 2 weeks, it might be 1 week, but we will transition, given those trends, to the red tier and perhaps even the orange tier if this continues. Now, I share it with you because the adjusted case rate is dropping quite considerably, and the positivity rate and the healthy index rate is dropping. And so the positivity rate is actually in the orange tier, which is a great sign. The healthy index, healthy places index, which is an analysis of the lower 25th percent of our population. And it's a health equity indicator. And that's the population of individuals that are disproportionately impacted by COVID. And now, as of last week, that rate was also in the orange tier. I learned this morning that it bumped up to the red tier, but that still continues to fluctuate. Overall, I will say to you that we are likely to be in the red tier as a county within 2 weeks is my estimation at this point. Next slide. And now what I'd like to do, Mandy, if I could get back to the main picture. What I'd like to do is bring to your attention resolution number 18, 20, 21. This resolution, I will not read it to you. It is 5 pages of a whole bunch of whereases. Now, don't be misled. That is our story. That resolution reflects how we got to where we are tonight. And it creates, for lack of a better way to say it, a funnel, a logic for why I am recommending to you this evening that we reopen our schools. Now, I do not take that recommendation lightly. Lots and lots of sleepless nights and worry and concern, as I know all of you share. But given the revised safety guidelines by the CDPH and the CDC, I think it's really important that we look at this and take action. Nearly 1 year ago, St. Louis Coastal made a decision to transition to distance learning as a result of the novel coronavirus known as COVID-19. We have attempted to balance reopening schools with the health and safety of our employees and students. In July 2020, the Board of Education voted to remain in distance learning through the winter break out of an abundance of caution. St. Louis Coastal's Board of Education approved a school reopening plan on November 17th, 2020. This plan set a target to reopen all elementary and secondary schools for January 2021 if our county was in the red tier plus 21 days. This plan was based on the best available public health science at the time. With the expected holiday spike, we remained in distance learning as the metrics used in November have not been met. In February 2021, the preponderance of scientific evidence suggests schools can safely reopen, provided that mitigation measures are in place. We have developed safe and successful working models in San Luis Coastal with special education programs, preschool and TK programs, and pilot elementary programs across the district. It is safe. It is working for our students, teachers, and families. Reopening our schools is a matter of equity. There are mental health related illnesses among our students, especially our most vulnerable student populations. There are well-documented increases in suicidal ideation among students. There are widespread feelings of isolation and loneliness, especially devastating for our adolescent learners seeking their identity. There are considerable discrepancies in learning and achievement among all student groups when compared to the previous academic years, despite heroic efforts by our teachers to do a distance learning model on the fly. In the recent words of a highly regarded San Luis Coastal teacher, I don't know how my students are doing. I mean, I can't tell if they are actually well. Zoom makes it very difficult to connect with my kids. Something must be done. End quote. According to the Center for Disease Control and the California Department of Public Health, reopening safety guideline recommendations are released. We should reopen our schools in San Luis Coastal. SLO County's case rates and positivity rates are trending downward. My recommendation is to create a phased-in reopening of our schools, beginning with our youngest students. First part, phase 1, March 4th, kindergarten through second graders. March 8th, third through sixth graders. And March 15th, all secondary schools, pending red tier plus 5 days per CDPH guidance. I am confident in this recommendation and the attached resolution to reopen our schools. It is the right decision. Our students deserve to be back in school. They need us to champion them. They deserve our full advocacy right now. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see that the board has any questions right now. We'll move on to comment regarding this item. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, I know you have a lot there to read, so let's begin.
I'll read this a little more slowly so it can be translated as well. The first one is from Richard Dow. Thank you for your commitment to the critical topic of school reopening and providing a forum for discussion. I, like many parents, fear the uncertainty of school reopening and the unknown trajectory of the pandemic. Yet more data show that a safe reopening is attainable. As a community, we have asked our children to settle for the limitations of remote instruction and the inevitable crumbling away of a valuable education. Distance learning may work for some students, but I think we can agree that it is not a suitable replacement for a majority of young learners. As a child of immigrants, I am also frustrated by the acknowledgement of the social inequities of remote learning, but the inability to be proactive at reopening our schools to remedy these inequities. My parents had a simple rule: do well in school and you can achieve anything. I'm having a harder time bringing this message to my child when there is clearly an inequitable offering of education in this county. I believe there are well-intentioned individuals who think they know what is equitable for racial minorities, working parents, and essential workers, but never experienced what it is like to climb the opportunity ladder rung by rung. Every week, the district delays reopening sets our children down a slippery slope and blurs this myopic lens of equity. What troubles me more are the murmurings in the news of an uncertain fall 2021 reopening. This is not a sustainable future for our children. Fortunately, there is hope with the COVID-19 vaccine. This should make reopening an even closer reality, but should not be the holy grail to base school reopening upon. To hinge a reopening on educators receiving a 2-shot vaccination series and waiting for durable immunity will only run out the academic clock. I also emphasize that the priority educators are given is a privilege not extended to many who already work in settings of great exposure risk to SARS-CoV-2. I respectfully believe the prevailing data shows schools can reopen safely in the current COVID-19 landscape with or without complete immunization when proper preventative measures are in place. The onus is now on the district leadership to be brave and fulfill the mission of what it means to be educators. Set a definitive reopening time frame for this school year and adhere to it. Let's show our children that we value their future. The next message is from Heather Gamble. I support Dr. Prater's recommendation to open schools. My son is in 1st grade, and I know he will do much better in person than he is doing online. I think even a couple months in person is better than no time in person. Please vote to open. Thank you for your time and commitment to our kids. Next is from Christina Bonnet. I would like to add my support for Dr. Prater's reopening plan. My kids need to be around other kids and not in this bubble we've created because we thought it was what's best. My 1st grader is so far behind that he's where he should have been at the end of kindergarten in some respects. I've tried my very hardest, and I know his teachers have done their very best and beyond. And I still cannot give him the confidence he needs to succeed because he doesn't see that just because he's struggling doesn't mean he's stupid. My 6-year-old should not feel stupid every single day because he can't see other kids are writing their letters backwards too. I want my 3rd grader who flourished in every group activity and sport before this to know that joy that exists when you're around friends and peers, because right now she's terribly lonely. I keep hearing the phrase, children are resilient and they'll bounce back. but children have never been through something like this, and we don't know the lasting effects of isolation. We've put them through in the name of our community's well-being. I support the reopening because it's rooted in science that sending them back is what's best for their well-being. The next message is from Jennifer Nur. Please take into consideration the new CDC guidelines and Dr. Prater's plan to reopen our schools. The children need to get back to in-person learning. Next is from Amy Adams. Good evening. I would like to start by saying thank you for your efforts to keep our community safe for the last 11 months. I know the decisions you have made to make have not been easy, and I appreciate that you have kept everyone's safety in mind. That is why I was so disappointed to read the proposal to open schools for hybrid instruction the first week of March. My first concern is the fact that parents made the choice of whether to send their children back in person to keep them distance learning based on the statement that we would be in the red tier for 3 weeks before any changes occurred. That amount of time has now been reduced. I am frustrated with the change in plans after such difficult decisions were made by families. I am also concerned for the safety of our teachers. The teachers are so close to being able to receive the vaccine, yet schools are opening in-person instruction before this is an option for them. Teachers' safety is so important. They have been working tirelessly to keep our children learning, and what an amazing job they are doing. We must show our appreciation for them and keep them in mind as you make such a big decision. I worry for our children's mental health if their teachers are getting sick. Please consider postponing face-to-face instruction until teachers and staff have the option to receive the vaccine if they so choose. Thank you. Courtney Hirschier. I have a kindergartner at Baywood, and distance learning has been very difficult to say the least. I was thrilled to hear Dr. Prater's change in our opening plan and completely support his recommendation to reopen schools with the updated timeline beginning March 4th. Thank you. Tom Mendoza and Allison Bell. We support the superintendent's recommendation and timeline for the district's reopening plan. Based on our current countywide numbers and newly released guidelines from CDC, the plan is safe and sensible, and it is necessary to meet the academic, social, and emotional well-being of our children. The Biden administration has recently called a lack of in-person schooling, quote, national emergency. New CDC guidelines issued last week state that schools can reopen while operating safely, which means operating with, quote, limited or no transmission while following its guidelines. The National Education Association supports the stronger safety guidelines proposed by CDC. We know there is no such thing as zero risk, but there are also real and serious consequences of not returning. These include the negative impact on mental and emotional health of our students, decreased academic development of students, likely compounded over many years, decreased economic stability of our community, especially families that don't have the option to work from home. There is already mounting evidence of these issues with serious and lasting consequences, perhaps even a larger negative impact than the pandemic itself. We have 3 children in the district. Our senior has persevered and has done everything we've asked of her. Our hearts are broken that she has missed nearly all of this special time in her life and possibly the entire school year. She has missed these exciting milestones, including a senior soccer season, and has missed out on the social development she needs in preparation for her new chapter after graduation. Our 6th grader and 3rd grader attend Los Osos Elementary. Every morning, they put on a brave face and log into Zoom and go through the motions. They are mostly focused with the normal challenges and hiccups that come with the online format. They are doing relatively well, but it's just not the same. And we're so concerned that they are losing out on an entire academic year and losing academic ground. Through it all, the district and school staffs have been truly heroic in all of this. They have exceeded our expectations, Our children's teachers have been truly extraordinary, and we can't thank them enough. But it is time to return to school. While only a couple months are left, please don't underestimate the significant impact that a return to school, a return to some normalcy, will have on the social and emotional well-being of not only our children, but our teachers and staff and community as a whole. Next, Neil Bennett. I'm writing to you in hopes that you will please attend to the hundreds of SLC USD band and choir students that have been ignored and neglected in the district's extracurricular, after school, and reopening plans. Specifically, the inequitable decision to keep all band and choir classes in a virtual format for the remainder of the year. I have watched in disbelief and shock as multiple athletic and sports activities have been brought back online with absolutely no acknowledgement of performing arts. As a licensed mental health provider and senior parent volunteering with virtual band senior recognition activities, I have watched the dismay of band students as the year continues with no opportunity to meaningfully connect to the activity that they've committed to for up to 7 years while in SLC USD music programs. I have observed previously engaged students drop out of high school due to having no emotional connection to virtual learning. I ask, how on earth can a close contact sport like wrestling be deemed safe, but practicing your instrument outside and even just practicing marching without instruments is not? I watch the Cal Poly and Cuesta music programs safe and effective pivot to an outdoor music format and think, why is SLC USD ignoring those successful models? I am disheartened at the arbitrary approval and attention to sports opportunities over the performing arts. I see promoting of sports opportunities and mental health resources in our school newsletter, but no acknowledged connection that music students need to connect with their primary extracurricular activity. I ask you to review another local successful outdoor music education program operating locally before shutting down all music performance classes for the remainder of this academic year. Thank you. I'll go slower. David Nussbaum. Thank you, school board and Dr. Prater. My name is David Nussbaum, and I'd like to discuss with you my concerns regarding the reopening plan for SLC USD, specifically the secondary sites. As Dr. Prater has stressed, it is imperative for schools to follow the latest science and guidelines regarding safe school reopening. For this reason, I thank all for reading through the latest guidelines the California Department of Public Health recently released regarding such reopenings. I'd like to point out a recent change of emphasis in the newest report: the use of stable groups as outlined on page 14 and pages 18 to 20. Specifically, based on science, the State Public Health Department outlines 7 characteristics students and schools should adhere to in order to open safely. More so, they emphasize the top 3 criteria are of equal importance. 1, face coverings. 2, stable groups. And 3, physical distancing. Pages 18 to 20 of the state document provide further detail and several examples of how stable groups may look in a secondary schedule. Yet the current district reopening plan approved in fall fails to acknowledge the fact that secondary sites do not currently offer stable groups. While I realize that stable groups at the secondary level may be a complex goal to achieve, the state provides multiple specific examples of effective, stable groups in its documents. One such example at the secondary level is to utilize in-person stable cohorts half-day for core subjects, such as English, math, science, and history, with electives and specialized instruction occurring in a distance digital setting. This is due to the personalized nature of electives versus core courses. For example, all students take grade level core courses. Electives, meanwhile, are student specific. Regarding the existing plan to reopen SLC USD secondary schools, I urge the board to task Dr. Prater and his team with developing a safer plan for secondary that is consistent with the newly published guidelines provided by the state, including the use of stable groups. I have provided for your reference the link for accessing the most recent California Department of Public Health school reopening document below. I can attempt to give you that. It's https://www.cdph.ca.gov/programs/cid/cd/DC and CDPH Consolidated Schools Guidance FD PDF. And then he ends with thank you for your time and consideration. Amelia E. De La Motte, thank you for letting me comment again about our school reopening plan. I cannot stress enough that our children, especially our elementary school children, are suffering a mental health crisis because of school closures. I beg of you to open the schools as fast as possible. The federal and state governments want to open schools as soon as possible. The district's self-imposed 3-week delay only adds to this ongoing crisis. Why wait? Please, please reopen. Denai O'Neill. When schools closed last March, I never thought we would be sitting here almost a year later, still trying to figure out how and when we will return to school. I have realized over the past year how important teachers, schools, and sports are to our children. I have noticed that without school, it is hard to give my child the socialization he needs at his age. I have also noticed that my child is lonely. Most of his day is spent on a screen. He doesn't play as much as he used to, and his appetite has been decreasing. The relationships our children form at school with their teachers, peers, and other caring adults are so important. Those relationships cannot be obtained through 20-minute Zoom calls. I feel so fortunate to live in a community that genuinely cares about each other. I know that we can all work together to make our return to school safe and effective. The sooner the better, so we can figure out how to make this work long-term. This past year has been hard on all of us, but at some point we have to come together and figure out how to move forward. Next, Genevieve Ledoff. Hello, board members. I am a registered nurse and a mother of 3 young children. My son started kindergarten in the middle of a pandemic, and he has risen to the challenges that come with Zoom school. He has spent the last 7 months learning from a fabulous teacher through a small Chromebook screen. We all did what we had to be done, but the time has come to return to in-person education. We must be directed by science, not feelings, and the CDC recommends a safe and return to in-person education. My son has been attending Spark, an after-school program through SLO Parks and Rec since August, and there have been no outbreaks. Children are excellent at adapting, and my son has never complained about wearing a mask. Mental health matters, and it is time to allow children to socialize and learn in a classroom again. I cannot wait to hear all about my son's first day of kindergarten. Thank you for your time. Eric Shafran. I support Superintendent Prater's proposal to reopen slow coastal elementary schools. As has been widely reported, there is a considerable amount of evidence that elementary schools are not a significant source of the spread of COVID-19. It is important for our district to make evidence-based decisions and not to be guided by emotion and fear in making its decision. The board should keep in mind that those parents who feel it is not safe to return to school have already been given the option to stay in virtual mode for the rest of the year. Thus, it is unclear to me why any parent would oppose reopening at this point. I also support teachers' rights to a safe workplace. The school system has developed a variety of precautions to ensure that reopening schools will be safe for teachers. These precautions are explained to parents back in November, and the school system has been preparing for safe reopening for 3 months now. Please reopen our public schools. Leah Bodley. I am certain that cheers were heard from so many houses last Friday after receiving Dr. Prater's message with his proposed plan for reopening our school. Right now, our children and their needs should be met. Distance learning is not working for so many families. There is a lot of fear right now. However, our children and their future should be the motivating factor behind the decisions that are made. I believe that it has been the goal of our board to work towards getting our children back in the classroom. We are now in the range to safely open our schools. It has been almost a year since our schools were closed. We can no longer let fear be what drives us when science has proved and provided the data that we are missing at the beginning of this pandemic. We know more now and we are prepared. Our children need to be back in the classroom and not in front of computer screens. We have amazing teachers in our district. They didn't go into teaching so they could sit behind a computer and talk to kids. Teachers thrive in a classroom. Learning happens in a classroom. Students belong in a classroom with their talented and dedicated teachers. Thank you. Glenn Gillen. This reopening plan is rushed mistake. SLC USD has been so careful for so long, and we are so close. Teachers will soon be eligible for vaccines. Case rates are still over twice as high as needed to be in the red tier. However, they are falling fast. If vaccines continue and the case rates keep falling, it won't be long until we can reopen safely. Safely in the sense that teachers will be vaccinated and case rates are only substantial. Why throw out all our hard work, commitment, and patience out the window for an opening without teacher vaccinations and COVID cases are still, quote, widespread in our community? Look into your hearts and ask yourself honestly, how would you feel if one or more teachers die just to satisfy a rushed reopening? Was it worth it? Carrie Schaefer. I am writing because, like you, I want what is best for the students of this district. As a parent, community member, and ex-teacher, I would like to express my opinion that schools need to open their doors now. I want our teachers to be safe and feel safe at work. In the nearly year-long school closure, the district has prepared and is ready to open safely under the current CDC guidelines. So why is the reopening of our schools even a question? Data has shown that with the proper precautions in place, school sites are not super spreaders of the coronavirus, and case rates in schools have shown to match community transmission rates. Our numbers allow us to open now. The longer we wait, the more we are widening the achievement gap. Each day that the buildings stay closed we are widening the educational inequities in our community. The data shows that students are struggling socially, emotionally, mentally, and academically. The data also shows there is no reason for the doors to remain closed, that staying home is having a negative impact on students. So I ask you, please follow the science just as you have for the past year and let our children go back to school. Thank you for your time. Austin Miller. The role of a school board is to listen to all families in a district and not just the loudest or most organized voices, but especially those families who, for a variety of reasons, may not speak up. In November, the district sent a survey to parents, and the majority of elementary parents want their children to return to school. A majority of parents feel the risks of continuing the remote learning experience outweighs the current risks of the pandemic. I have watched my own son, who viewed school as an engaging medium to pursue his curiosities, drift away from his belief. My wife and I worked to preserve his love of learning, and at times this meant that we did not prioritize school. School became divorced from learning rather than an expression of it. We have been blessed with teachers and a principal who listened and understood. We have been blessed with friends and family who offer camping trips and hands-on learning away from screens. But blessings shouldn't be what separates students like my son and students who aren't so lucky. For those parents who want to continue in the remote format, that option exists. But the majority of parents want in-person schooling for their children. Please give us that option also. Sarah Cohen and John Greiser. We are writing to express support for the district's reopening plans as articulated in February 12th family communication. 11 months ago, we were proud of the way our district took decisive action to keep our families, teachers, staff, and communities safe. Since that time, we have appreciated the commitment to communication that the district has demonstrated throughout this challenging and unprecedented time. We have been impressed by the creativity and dedication of our teachers. Like we repeatedly tell our kids, we can do hard things. Our collective understanding of the science around the virus, its transmission, treatment, prevention, and protocols is dynamic. We know much more today than we did 11 months ago, or even 3 months ago, when the first vaccines were approved. The district's plan to reopen our schools also needs to be dynamic. There is not only scientific consensus, but also extensive demonstration that we can safely reopen our schools with the right policies, best practices, and protocols in place for us to follow. The recent guidance from the CDC in combination with the lessons from hundreds of school districts around the world and country show us how to do this. As the board considers our reopening plan, we hope you will follow the guidance from the CDC and the thousands of doctors and scientists who support school reopenings. We hope you will enable families that choose in November to go back to school when we knew even less than we do today and before vaccines were being administered two of our kids, but the psychological, social, and emotional well-being of our children. They have been brave, adaptable, and resilient through this crisis. Now it is our turn to be the same, approving the modified plan and reopening San Luis Coastal schools immediately. Janice Lawyer. Public school teachers have been protected close to a year now, while everybody else has put themselves at risk. No other profession has had this luxury. When did teachers get to have more of a say than our children? School is essential for our children's health and well-being. If a teacher or school board member can't see this, then they should not be in education. It's time that teachers join everybody else and do their job where it's meant to be done, the classroom. Not my son's bedroom. I'm tired of excuses. Kristen Dennis. I would like to express my feelings and thoughts surrounding the board's vote tonight, allowing our children to return to in-person learning. I want what is best for these students, and in my opinion, the best thing is for these children to be in person as soon as possible. Data has shown that with the proper precautions in place, school campuses are not super spreaders of the coronavirus. Per the CDC guidelines, our numbers allow for us to open now. Our teachers are superheroes, and I am incredibly thankful for their tireless work, dedication, long hours, and love they put into what they do. We are so lucky. But even with all of the blood, sweat, and tears our teachers are putting into the distance learning program, our children are academically behind. Their brains and hearts are not equipped to learn in front of a screen. They need the in-person instruction along with their peers. Our kids are suffering socially. They are battling social anxiety, depression, and self-esteem issues. I worry about the long-term emotional impact this will have on them. They see kids their own age and interacting with friends, even if it is from distance. My kids have changed because of the distance learning environment, and I want them to have some normalcy back. From a working parent perspective, it has been extremely difficult to work full-time and also support my kids as they learn from home. They have been left to figure things out for themselves and are not getting the support they deserve because I am on calls myself all day long. It has been an extreme hardship. Please allow our kids to go back to school, follow science and CDC recommendations, give our kids the education they deserve. Ashley Smith. Our family was ecstatic last week when we received the proposed reopening plan. I commend you all on laying the groundwork to get our children back in the classroom. Now, more than ever, I plead with the board members to stay the course to get our kids back in the classroom. A year of virtual learning is far too long. Children are eager to be back in the classroom. The precautions are working. We have seen evidence of that in the small groups that have been happening in the district. We have seen it in the private schools throughout our county. We have seen it in North County's school district. We can do it safely. Postponing the reopening of schools only hurts our children and their education. Continue the course, put our kids first, keep the politics of teachers' unions out of your decision. Please vote to get our kids back in the classroom. Danielle Hogan. It's in the best interest of my children, not only mentally and emotionally, but scholastically, to return to the classroom as soon as possible. Not all children are able to keep up with their classmates at home. My older children fall into this category. One of mine went back part-time last month, and it has helped her to catch up. And I have also seen a change in her overall well-being, having some normalcy by going back to a classroom setting. My oldest is still trying to do her best from home. Her first year in middle school, learning not only a new schedule with new teachers, but a new way of learning, and she's having trouble. Something that we can be remedied by her learning in person. To expect these children to be self-driven, to sit and stare at a screen for hours a day, and to be fully present and give their full attention is honestly ridiculous. Dr. Jason and Katie Green. We would like to reiterate our support for in-person learning. We think it is extremely important to get the students back in the classroom as soon as possible. We appreciate all your hard work. Thank you for your time and effort. Stacy Lang. Dear school board members, thank you for your hard work during this time. I am writing to express my desire to get our kids back to school. It's been too long. They need to be back in the classroom and off distance learning. It will be a year this March that our kids have been out of school. This is not good for them academically, emotionally, and physically. My youngest is in first grade. He's been struggling academically as Zoom meetings are very hard to keep his attention. He's one of the lucky children to get to join in a small group twice a week. The first day he came home from in-person small groups, he told me he likes, quote, real school better. He has checked out on Zoom and he's not working. They're not working for him as well as for other kids. When it comes time to vote, please vote in favor of reopening schools, and thank you. Janet Lindsay. I would like to urge the school district to reopen the schools as soon as possible. While I understand the concerns for safety not only of the staff, but for the students, I feel that over the past 11 months, many changes have been made and precautions have been put into place to help ensure safety as much as possible. I see many schools, including some local, that have returned successfully with minimal issues. Why are we only allowing certain classes and schools to return? This request is because I am, quote, tired of teaching my kids, as many people against schools reopening state. This request is based on the mental health of not only my children, but many others that are struggling with the isolation and lack of interaction with not only peers, but with teachers and staff. Both of my children, age 11 and 13, are currently seeing a therapist weekly and are still having difficulties. My daughter is now on medication for depression and anxiety. I know the return will be far from what they are used to as far as normal, but it will be better than what we have now. I hope that all aspects of the health of our children are being considered. Thank you. Sarah Cohen and John Greiser. We are writing to express support for the district's reopening plans as articulated in the February 12th family communication. 11 months ago, we were proud of the way our district took decisive action to keep our families, teachers, staff, and communities safe. Since that time, we have appreciated the commitment to communication that the district has demonstrated throughout this challenging and unprecedented time. We have been impressed by the creativity and dedication of our teachers. Like we repeatedly tell our kids, we can do hard things. Our collective understanding of science around the virus, its transmission, treatment, and prevention and protocols is dynamic. We know much more today than we did 11 months ago, or even 3 months ago, when the first vaccines were approved. The district's plan to reopen our schools also needs to be dynamic. There is not only scientific consensus, but also extensive demonstration that we can safely reopen our schools with the right policies, best practices, and protocols in place for us to follow. The recent guidance from the CDC, in combination with the lessons from hundreds of schools around the country and the world, show us how to do this. As the board considers our reopening plan, we hope you will follow the guidance from the CDC and thousands of doctors and scientists who support school reopenings. We hope you will enable families that choose in November to go back to school when we knew even less then than we do today, and before vaccines were being administered, to actualize that option. Finally, we ask you to consider not only the educational well-being of our kids, but the psychological, social, and emotional well-being of our children. They have been brave, adaptable, and resilient through this crisis. Now it is our turn to be the same. by approving the modified plan and reopening San Luis Coastal's schools immediately. Next is from Katie. Our students need to be safely back in school. Our teachers need to be provided proper equipment and access to the vaccine if they so choose, and they need to be back in the classroom. Students and parents' mental health is suffering. The school system was created with tax dollars for students to be educated with parents' work. That system is currently broken, and the best repair would be to have students and teachers back in school. Schools are not the cause of spread, and that has been documented without bias. Let's do this for the kids. Fran Coy, please reopen the schools for the students. I am a grandmother to 2 elementary and 1 Los Osos Middle School student, and they need to have schools open for learning. It has been very hard for children to sit in front of a computer screen to try and learn. The teachers should be applauded for their hard work, but these children need face-to-face learning. They need to gain social skills along with math and science. They need class personal interaction. It is sad and depressing to see how these kids are unhappy and distracted with Zoom school. Please, please reopen the schools. All the children need the schools to reopen. We want the best for our kids, and opening schools is the best thing to do. Kathleen, please continue to move forward on reopening our elementary schools. Our county is at a case rate of 15.6%, and the CDC and CDPH, who are experts, say students should return if counties are at 25%. Children need to be the priority. We have spent too much time on Zoom and on screens. It needs to stop. Teachers would be more protected than our grocery store workers have been, working nonstop since day one. Let's make sure to focus on the future generation and not choose the easy way out to hide behind the teacher union. I commend these teachers that have volunteered to return and show others that they are choosing to put our children's education first. I hope others can join them and the board moves forward on the reopening plans immediately. Lexi Bell, I am writing in support of the proposed reopening of SLC USD item 10.01 on tonight's board agenda. Per Dr. Prater's recommendation, these are difficult choices in a time of rapidly changing information and fluctuating conditions. Still, I think experiences across many districts, including our own, and recommendations from the CDC and large groups of health experts support the careful and thoughtful reopening of elementary schools, at least part-time. I am also still concerned, in particular with the inequities developing between students still at home and those consistent access to in-person school at pilot sites and other locations, specifically for kindergarten. Christopher McMains, I strongly urge you to bring back all kindergartners in the hybrid AM-PM model for in-person instruction ASAP. They are not progressing in reading and math as they should, and it is difficult for this age group in particular to learn via online learning. These kids need to move their bodies more during the school day. Teachers are not able to adequately assess their progress and adapt their lessons. Numerous technical difficulties chew up valuable instruction time. The children in the dual immersion program are especially in need of in-person instruction, and I urge you to prioritize getting back into classrooms. I also urge you to increase your teacher ratio in the dual immersion kindergarten classes by hiring more teachers' aides to help with small group instruction for the remainder of the calendar year, so these kids can be prepared for first grade Spanish, reading, and math. I hope the school district will prioritize the needs of these youngest learners. They've already brought many kids in this age group back. All kindergartners need to be back in the classroom, and they can safely return given the protocols you have in place. And again, I urge the district to not forget the needs of the dual immersion students during this transition, and to be sure you have interventions in place for them to catch up. Kobe Parker Garcia. It's time for elementary school students to get back into the classroom. All the data shows that it can be done in a safe and responsible way. I find it discouraging that the union would try and block this and not allow for things to move forward. Please stand up for our future and not bow down to the union. Our kids need you more than ever. Tai Trujillo. As a parent of 3 school-aged children, I would like to say that I fully support opening schools. The teachers and staff have done an amazing job educating my children virtually and staying connected, but there is just no replacement for in-person school. All my children are lacking the person-to-person contact, excuse me, they need to thrive as children. Although they have all kept up their learning and participation, I feel they are all losing out, I'm assuming, sorry. Losing the excitement for learning they once had. Please open schools with the wonderful hybrid method that has been created. I feel the psychological effects of isolation are far greater than the risks of COVID. Thank you for all your hard work and support for families that have been ongoing through this pandemic. Samantha Bissetti. I want to first take a moment to thank you for your time and service throughout this past year. I can't imagine the weight up on your shoulders as you continue to navigate this unprecedented time. I am not just a local mom advocating for my children to return back to school. I am also an NICU pediatric RN advocating for all kids in our community to have the chance to return to campus. As you well know, we have been out of school for almost a full year. At the start of this, we agreed to follow the recommendations of the top government officials and scientists guiding us through the pandemic. We now have recommendations and guidelines from the same governing bodies and officials to return our children to an on-campus setting. We have watched both private and public schools around us conduct classes safely on campus for months now. SLC USD has a solid plan to return safely, and it's time for us to move forward. The mental health impact on our children has been significant. I am so proud of our children in this community. They have risen to the occasion and performed online to the best of their abilities, as we have asked them to do. Now we need to tend to their psychosocial needs and support best practices to allow them to return safely in order for them to regain some normalcy as we continue to move forward and heal from the impact of this pandemic. I hope that as each of you consider your vote, that you not only consider the CDC and CDPH guidelines and the recommendations that also recognize that on-campus education is essential for both the academic and psychosocial growth our kids need to thrive. This is from Janine. I am an RN and a mother of 3 children in our district. We need to follow the science and data and allow our schools to reopen to in-person instruction. In my opinion, this should have happened months ago, but delaying it even more will continue to set our children, our teachers, school staff, and children all at a very low risk of getting sick from COVID. Precautions and hygiene work. I see it personally every day in my line of work. And we have to start using common sense over fear. Teachers, you have all done a tremendous job adapting to virtual teaching, but it's time to do what is essential and safe and bring the kids back to the classroom. Rebecca?
Catherine, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to take a 10-minute break. And we will return back to the meeting at 10 minutes after 7. Thank you. We're now taking a recess. I just want to let everybody know that we're waiting for a few more board members to come back into to Zoom, and then we will resume the meeting.
We'll see if they're ready to start.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and welcome back. We will continue with the written public comments. I would just like to recognize Dr. Eisendrath Rogers for her yeoman's duty reading through these. We have quite a few more. I want to thank everybody for writing to us. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's continue, please.
And next we have Rebecca Russell. I'm increasingly frustrated with the comment process where we speak, ask questions, and with no feedback from the board. It's as if we speak into the void. But since this is the process we're given, I'll continue to comment. The mission of SLC USD is to educate students to become self-sufficient individuals who are capable of making significant contributions to society and managing change in the culturally diverse world community. The district guarantees to provide the highest quality programs and services, which will give all individuals the opportunity to realize their full intellectual, physical, creative, emotional, and social potential. According to new CDC recommendations, quote, numerous media reports of COVID-19 outbreaks among the US high school athletic teams suggests that contact during both practices and competition and at social gatherings associated with team sports increase risk. So why are sporting practices taking place at our high schools when our children still aren't in class? Why is that getting children back in classrooms isn't with emergency sessions? All other projects are icing on the cake. Focus on this issue. Shauna Devolay. I am writing to you today in hopes that you will continue to follow the science as Dr. Prater, our governor, and the President of the United States have all been guiding us to do since the beginning of the pandemic. We have all learned so much over the past 11 months. Today, it is up to you to follow science and allow our children to get back to school. Online learning simply does not hold a candle to learning in the classroom. For almost a full year, our kids have been learning by staring at tiles on a screen with no opportunity for in-person instruction. We realized this was necessary in the beginning of this pandemic, but that is not the case any longer. My kids' teachers have done the absolute best job they can do under the circumstances, but there is so much being missed. Teachers can't simply walk from desk to see how students are progressing on a certain project, and if they are getting something wrong, it can't be corrected in real time. Teachers are unable to give real suggestions and encouragement the way they do in person. Please continue to follow science and allow our children the opportunity to go back to school. Scott and Kelly Lightley, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share my comments tonight. We are Bishop's Peak family. Our children are in kindergarten and second grade. I urge the board to adopt Dr. Prater's revised reopening plan and allow our children to move back to in-person learning starting on March 4th. We are coming up on a year of distance learning. The current data and science proves and supports that in-person learning can be done safely. A number of students in our community have been on campuses since the beginning of the school year through the Spark program, and then more recently through the pilot programs. The local data shows that there has been no community spread within our schools. Our district has the safety protocols in place, and the students adapt quickly to wearing masks, washing hands frequently, and social distancing. This has been shown in the pilot programs within our district. The CDC, the CDPH, the WHO, and the AAP are a multitude of other medical communities, journals, and professionals supporting children going back to in-person learning. With proper safety measures in place, please do not delay in-person learning for our children any longer. Thank you for your time. Lori Bishop. I'm writing in strong support of Dr. Prater's recommendation to return students to in-person learning as soon as possible. Best practice, common sense, and now data from around the country and world provide a strong rationale for this immediate action. Vijay George, MD. I have two boys currently at SLC USD schools and have been very disappointed with the quality of distance education. Despite the prodigious efforts put forth by teachers, which I am very appreciative of, the current situation is simply not tenable. Children require social interaction, and the lack of it has a great detrimental impact on scholastic performance and mental health. In addition, I've been disappointed with a drop in the baseline level of education. In general, there is an overall expectation that online programs, in parentheses, STMath/EPIC/RASKids, are somehow a substitute for in-person learning with a teacher because the teacher tracks time spent on these programs. It is not. They are clearly inadequate, and children are the ones suffering as a result. I fully realize the risks of coronavirus, but the damage done by closing schools and instituting distance learning are far more damaging, long-lasting, and insidious in our community. Please reopen school full-time for families that are willing to participate. I understand the logistics are difficult, but they can be worked out. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Rogers, can you hang on for just a moment, please? I need to take a break here and check to see if anyone needs translation. Could we get that translated, Maria, and see if any hands go up? If you need translation, would you please raise your hand?
Si alguien necesita servicios del intérprete, por favor, pueden levantar su mano.
Okay, thank you. We're not seeing anyone at this point, but thank you very much. And thank you so much for our hardworking translator. We really appreciate it.
Joyce Singh, I appreciate the tremendous amount of time and energy you have put into figuring out how to reopen in person, especially when this is an emotionally charged topic and the COVID-19 rates, variants, and guidelines are constantly changing. I am beyond grateful to the SLC USD staff for working so hard and thoughtfully to engage and effectively teach our students during this unprecedented year. I stand with the staff unions and their reopening requests. In addition, I support the recommendations laid out in the California Teachers Association, quote, pathway to bringing back students to schools, end quote. Furthermore, please give staff sufficient time to plan for the reopening of their classrooms, as currently it appears on the reopening timeline that they will have just one day. While the evidence does support the elementary schools can return in person safely with proper mitigation strategies, the proposed March 15th date for the return of grades 7 to 12 seems too soon. Please consider the following. In reviewing the district's plan, I could not find a detailed mitigation plan geared specifically for grades 7 to 12. This is concerning given that teenagers are more likely to contract COVID-19 and are of greater risk for severe symptoms compared to kids 11 and under. It seems especially important to figure out how to minimize staff and student mixing before and after each class and at dropout, off, and pickup. In addition, unlike elementary school students, grades 7 through 12 will not be remaining in stable cohorts when they do return in person. Therefore, what was learned from the elementary school pilots only goes so far in their relevancy to reopening grades 7 through 12. It would seem beneficial to first pilot secondary in-person classes. Just as grades K to 2 will start in person before grades 3 to 6, it seems beneficial that the grades 7 to 12 have a staggered start as well, and perhaps middle school can start first. Given that about 45% of children appear asymptomatic, required daily health screenings only go so far. As recommended by the CDPH, in-person staff and students should participate in testing every 2 weeks when the county is in red tier. Finally, to ensure staff and students adhere to the district's COVID-19 safety plan, it would be helpful to have an anonymous reporting system so that staff and families can feel safe to bring forth any concerns or issues without repercussions. Thank you. Brooke Blackham. I am a stay-at-home mom of 5 school-age children. I am not a teacher. I'm so grateful for all the hard work of all the teachers my children have had, but virtual learning is not working for my family. I tried to be positive when I withdrew all 5 of my children to homeschool. My husband and I pay taxes, we pay for school, and we've had to pay more to purchase our own curriculum to homeschool our 5 children. 2 of them are not even learning math. I'm not sure if I'm teaching them at the level they are at because I'm not a teacher. I'm not even sure if they are progressing, but I will not stand by and watch my children fail and be disappointed in themselves. This is not their fault. They deserve to learn. They want to learn. Me trying to be their teacher is damaging our relationships. I cannot teach 5 different ages ranging from 5 to 15 in one day. Someone is always left out or forgotten. Please don't forget about my children. Help us. They need to go to school and be taught in person by their teachers, not their mother. I'm terrified of one of them hurting themselves because of the pressure they put on themselves. It is heartbreaking to watch my oldest, who has been a 4.0 student with all awards and achievements, be failed and see the disappointment in herself. Her achievements are part of her identity. Please let the teachers do their job and let me be their mom. Casey Cardenas. I wanted to take a moment to speak on behalf of my family in regard to the reopening of our schools. I think it is critical to the well-being of our children to return back to in-person school. Whether it be for half a day or for a few hours a day, I have sat back and watched over the course of this year my son go from an excellent student receiving awards for strategic thinker and having his teachers praise him about how caring, compassionate, and helpful he is, to him sitting mindless in front of a computer for hours on end, quote unquote, learning, struggling, and becoming a completely different child. I can see how upset he is now. He is having a hard time understanding what is going on in class, and even with great extra help, is still showing little signs of understanding the subject. He is a great student, but not on Zoom. How do we expect our kids to learn if they are not engaged, not heard, not grasping what is taught? It breaks my heart to see how emotionally drained he is now and how much he does not enjoy learning. I believe that a teacher, I believe that in-person schooling is absolutely essential to the well-being of my son's learning. I am not a teacher. I work full-time to provide for my family. I go to school as well to further my education for better opportunities. I try to help my son, but I don't understand fully how to help him, and neither does my wife. We are doing our best, as I'm sure the teachers are online, but let's face it, kids need to be around other kids. They need to have someone looking directly after them when learning, someone who knows what they are doing and how to communicate to them in a way I cannot. I appreciate your time and hope we can return soon. Chrissy Belisario. I wanted to take a moment to speak on behalf of my family in regards to the reopening of our schools. I think it is critical to the well-being of our children to return back to in-person school, whether it be for half a day or a few hours a day. I have sat back and watched over the course of this last year, my son go from an excellent student receiving awards for strategic thinker and having his teachers praise him about how caring, compassionate, and helpful he is, to him sitting mindless in front of a computer for hours on end, quote unquote, learning, struggling, and becoming a completely different child. I can see how upset he is. He is having a hard time understanding what is going on in class, and even with extra help, is still showing little sign of understanding the subject. He's a great student, but not on Zoom. How do we expect our kids to learn if they are not engaged, not heard, not grasping?
This is a duplicate.
Okay, pardon.
This one's a duplicate. I think we just not reading.
And not grasping the subject. And the next is Crystal Mitchell. COVID's still a threat, and we know what happens when we don't put safety first, ignore proper ventilation, or rates of community spread. The virus worsens. A successful reopening requires real safety and accountability measures, including prioritizing vaccines for educators. Parents and educators can agree. Reopen schools, but vaccinate first. I am speaking in opposition of the new reopening proposal. Vaccinations of all teachers and staff need to be prioritized first. If school is a necessity, then the health and well-being of teachers and support staff must be a first priority. We need you to listen to your teachers. We've all worked hard to keep our community as safe as possible for a year. The light is visible, but we are still in the tunnel. Don't rush this. We have following individuals who submitted requests to speak during public comment. No.
Skip that part. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to Devin Kun Chal. Today, the board is tasked with voting on a new reopening plan based on updated recommendations from the CDC that show it may be safe to reopen if specific mitigation strategies are implemented. Before the board makes its decision this evening, I hope it seeks answers to find whether and how these specific mitigation strategies will be implemented, especially at secondary levels. The current district plans are still vague on a number of important secondary details. For instance, the January 2021 CDPH guidelines recommend that in red and in capitalized letters, purple tiers, both teachers and capitalized K through 12 students undergo asymptomatic testing every 2 weeks. Current district plans propose asymptomatic testing of only staff once every 2 months. Districts that have successfully reopened commit to testing and require completed student testing consent forms. Will we commit to the current CDPH testing guidelines for all students and staff every 2 weeks? Will we require students and families to complete testing consent forms before they may begin in person? CDPH also recommends stable cohorts. While the elementary plan achieves this, the current secondary plans do not. I realize meeting the requirements for cohorts at the secondary level would be a huge challenge and would require a dramatic overhaul of how courses are structured, at least based on CDC recommendations. If that has not been sorted out in the 13 weeks since November, it is hard to feel confident it will be sorted out in the next 2.5. The district has been so cautious with our health and safety thus far that to reopen without following recommended mitigation strategies mere weeks from teachers accessing the vaccine seems needlessly risky. If the district cannot gain concrete answers to these questions tonight, it may be premature to commit to a firm reopening date for secondary. Elementary plans have benefited from the experiences of TK and Kinder pilot programs. Perhaps instead, the board might consider a secondary pilot program until the recommended mitigation practices can be sorted out. Finally, I hope the district takes guidance from what the teachers recommend. They are the backbone of our district. They have excelled at the challenges this year presented. They know what our students need, and they have real expertise here. Thank you all. Frank Chance. I am writing in favor of reopening the schools. My son is a freshman at San Luis Obispo High School. He is currently spending 10 days or more hours a day, 10 or more hours a day staring at a screen. Class is on a screen, homework is on a screen, office hours are on a screen, small group instruction is on a screen, even band is on a screen. He needs in-person instruction and less time sitting in front of a computer. Please reopen the schools. Casey Rosenlieb, please open the schools for all children. School is important. Carrie Smith, I am speaking as a concerned parent, a high school teacher, and a community member. Given that San Luis Obispo County is not progressing into the red tier, as was previously predicted, does the board truly feel that moving forward with this new, ultimately rushed reopening plan is necessary, and more importantly, safe? Safety, of course, being the #1 priority for our students and staff on all campuses. I fear for the safety of my elementary age children and their teachers. I also fail to see the benefit of having my young children in class for a few hours, risking exposure for what? Socialization, wearing masks, sitting in socially distanced desks, and leaving before lunch is not socializing. Additionally, as a high school teacher in the district, it is clear that reopening is not safe for those of us at the secondary level. But safety aside, I ask the board to further consider what reopening means for our high school students. A shorter day for students and no small group instruction. Once we reopen with teachers teaching half of the day in person and the other half online, we will no longer have the ability to offer our students the option of SGI. This will most significantly impact our struggling and low-performing students who now benefit from small group and one-on-one instruction in the afternoon. Furthermore, as a member of the community, I am concerned about releasing high school adolescents at noon to congregate downtown with one another. This is certainly not safe and highly likely to occur upon reopening. We have a responsibility to our local community members, and we cannot neglect the fact that allowing this to happen is irresponsible given the current circumstances. I simply ask our board, who I might add is still meeting via Zoom due to safety concerns, to take all of this into consideration when making a decision today. Michael DeBaze. Dear board members, Dr. Prater, fellow parents, and all in attendance, my wife Robin and I would like to strongly urge the board to approve the superintendent's recommendation to reopen schools at this time. As both a parent of 3 elementary age children at Bishop's Peak and SLO, and as a local physician in our community, I fully understand the complexities of deciding when to reopen in-person instruction has weighed heavily on all of us. As we are hopeful that we will soon be able to be considered in the red tier in the next few weeks, my children are anxiously awaiting being able to rejoin their classmates, finally meet their teachers in person, and begin to resume their lives as in-person learners. I would like to applaud all of those teachers who have taken time and the brave steps to go back to in-person instruction, and hope that their peers will soon follow. The community at large has made great strides in vaccinations over the last 2 months, and by March, I am confident that we will all be in a better situation to safely reopen schools as is being proposed tonight. Other local school districts have already successfully demonstrated that reopening in person with proper precautions can and is working. Slc Usd needs to catch up, in my opinion. I feel compelled to mention that it is my observation that the mental anguish, anxiety, and disconnect that families in our district are feeling, both by our children and their parents, as a result of the indefinite reality of distance learning, cannot be overstated. Our 3 children are all performing below their potential this year, and it is only getting worse by the month. A ray of hope recently emerged for us when our 3rd grade daughter's teacher, Mrs. Linz Marshall, was granted the ability to work with her in person even a few hours this month. This has only just started to offset the struggles that our daughter had faced academically this year, but Mrs. Marshall's efforts are so greatly appreciated by our family. Once again, my wife and I want to applaud the efforts of our brave teachers and administrators for their dedication and hard work, and encourage our teachers and staff that are concerned about returning to in-person instruction to join their peers in this effort soon. And next to last, Dan Clancy. Thank you for proposing resolution 10/2021, reopening recommendation. I fully support it and am grateful beyond words. You are putting kids first. If any parent or teacher is concerned, despite what the science is saying, there are thousands of schools with millions of elementary age kids in person opened since September. I asked public school elementary parents and teachers in New Jersey, a Democrat state, what it was like to be back in school in person since September. Union County, New Jersey has a population of 4,955 people per square mile with higher disease prevalence than SLO County since March 2020. SLO has 75 people per square mile. If any place in the country should be worried about how to keep socially distanced and whether it's safe for children schooling in person, it's New Jersey. Here is what they have to say. I have been teaching in person since September 3rd. My girls have been in a hybrid format, so they have been in person 2 or 3 days a week and virtual the others. It's all been good, and we all agree that the in-person is much better for all. I was a nervous wreck all summer about going back as a teacher, but I feel safe where I work and where we send our kids. I'm on the Board of Education, and we are avoiding closing at all costs. Parents always have the option for the kids to be virtual. Grade 4 and first grade are both in school 5 days a week, half days, and it has been great. The kids love being in school, even though they are masked and spaced 6 feet apart from other kids. It's honestly been so much better than I could have imagined. And I 100% feel like they are safe. Yes, my 5th grader is in the classroom half day every day. They changed to virtual for the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, but we went back to in classroom afterward, totally fine for us. Yes, my 3rd grader is in half day every day. I'm shocked and so happy with how well it's gone. I've been teaching first grade in person since September. It's much more work on my part, but it's so much better than being virtual. And it's great for the kids. And they socialize and they try to be normal. SLC USD can have these same positive experiences. SLC USD kids deserve this chance. And one last, two last. Chrissy Belisario. As an SLC USD parent, I would like to express my continued support in moving forward.
Catherine, can you double check that? I think we're going to wait a second. I think we already heard from her, but hang on just a moment, please. Oh, we didn't. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? I apologize. We had the wrong comment attached to yours. I apologize. Catherine, please continue.
Sure. Chrissy Belisario, as a SLC USD parent, I would like to express my continued support in moving forward with the plan to reopen schools for in-person instruction. As I am sure many of you are aware of a study recently released by McKinsey & Company, estimated that the shift to remote school in the spring set students back by 1 to 3 months in math alone. The McKinsey study echoes a half dozen other national reports released in recent days. They all find that students regressed because of lost classroom time in the spring, particularly in math, though the reports vary in degree of the losses and disparities among student groups. This is not taking into account the mental health impact. Thank you to the school board administrators, teachers, and staff for acknowledging what is best for our children and reopening our schools. And Amber Wheel, I am writing in support of reopening schools as previously decided. When in the red tier for 3 weeks, the decision to reopen schools should include vaccinations of teachers and others who work the schools. Per the CDC, teachers are in the 18 vaccination tier. However, they are not currently eligible in SLO County. If vaccinations of this group were to start now, they could safely be back in the classroom in a little over a month. By then, we would see if we are in the red tier for those 3 weeks. If the board moves forward with opening in March, then I urge the board to allow parents to change their previous decisions on returning in person or remaining virtual. I fully support the teachers, custodians, librarians, administrative assistants, teachers' assistants, and others who work on the campus of our schools. As a critical care registered nurse who has been in the thick of the pandemic at times, I am thankful to be vaccinated. I want the schools to reopen, but safety of staff is of utmost importance.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. We're going to open it up now for verbal comment, if anybody would like to do that. So far I have 3 people. I'm going to start with Katharina Gillen. So Katharina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Katharina, your 3 minutes will start now.
Okay, thanks. Yes, hi everyone, good evening. My name is Katharina Gillen and I'm a scientist. I have a PhD in physics. I'm a professor at Cal Poly. But more importantly, I have a child in kindergarten and a child in 3rd grade at Baywood Elementary. And today I'd like to speak out in opposition to the reopening proposal for the following 3 reasons. One is teachers should be offered to get vaccinated before returning to school. Two is when parents submitted their choice for in-person return when possible or staying online for the remainder of the year, it was based on stricter reopening criteria and safety requirements than those of the new proposal. And third, there has not been enough time for meaningful input from stakeholders with this new proposal, as it was first announced only 1 business day ago. Nor is there enough time for teachers to adequately prepare their classrooms and their lessons for this new format and become familiar enough with the new safety procedures to help the children stay safe during class. To elaborate a little further on those first 2 items, so one, offering teachers vaccines before forcing them to return in person, I think is a matter of basic respect. They have made huge sacrifices for us to provide excellent instruction under really difficult circumstances. They're people, not statistics, and they deserve the 20 times boost in safety that a vaccine provides. Teachers are in tier 1B, and it would take less than 1 day to vaccinate all teachers and staff in this school district if SLO Public Health so chose. We really need you all to advocate more strongly for our teachers instead of forcing them back in person prematurely. And second, a reopening date has been set regardless of the current case rates. I think that's irresponsible. And the new CDPH guidelines allow a 25 in 100,000 case rate in comparison to the 7 out of 100,000 case rate of the current plan, which is a factor of 3.6 reduction in safety. Also, there does not need to be a health screening upon arrival on campus, nor will compliance with home screening be monitored. Thus, teachers, staff, and students could come to school without any health screening or temperature check. And instead of classrooms being cleaned twice a day as laid out in the November 17 plan, they now only need to get cleaned if there was a case and only the space where a case spent a large proportion of their time. This is much less safe than what was stated in the November 17 proposal, plan, and also in the reopening video that we got to see. Yet parents are now locked into their choices for sending their students in person.
Thank you very much. Your 3 minutes is up. We
Okay.
appreciate it. And just
Thank
a
you all.
reminder
I
to
appreciate
everybody-
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have someone named Beth, and I don't have a last name for Beth. Is there a Beth there that wishes to speak? Okay. Next up would be Jennifer Sandals. Jennifer, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, please, your 3 minutes begin right now.
Okay. Buenas noches, soy Maestra Sandals, una maestra de kinder in Baywood. And as a kindergarten teacher, it is my desire to be in the classroom with my students and fostering their learning. My intention is to return, but only when it's safe to do so. While per Dr. Fauci and CDC, social gatherings with those out of household pod is highly ill-advised, and yet the proposal is to put hundreds of students in a building together with school staff in 2 weeks' time. The call to return on March 4th creates a false sense of urgency. The timing seems politically charged and arbitrary. Since last March, the district and the board has looked at facts to make decisions, and we need to continue to look at those facts, not projections. According to the county metric that was updated today, we are still in the purple tier. District and site employees still need thorough and comprehensive COVID safety training, as our own district's inconsistent protocol across campuses clearly demonstrates there's still much work to be done in terms of safety, site preparedness, and asymptomatic testing practices. Adequate planning and training for teachers and school staff is not a 36-slide Google presentation. Schools are not daycare centers, and I understand that parents need to get back to work and the economy needs a reboot, but opening schools on March 4th is not the solution. I'm urging that teachers are not required to return to mandatory in-person instruction until we have access to a full course of vaccinations. The hypocrisy of meeting virtually to discuss returning to indoor schooling with unvaccinated teachers and staff demonstrates a disregard for the health of teachers, district staff, and the families at home. Safety has been and should continue to be a priority. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mrs. Bravante.
Hi, good evening. I am a district music teacher and parent of a 5th grader. First of all, I would like to recognize how very thankful I am to work for San Luis Coastal Unified School District. I've said this before and I'll say it again, I am very thankful for our district. I have looked at so many different distance learning models across the country and feel our model far surpasses all others that I have seen. We have made great progress since last spring under the so-called emergency distance learning plan. And although it is far from ideal, I am making connections with my students. And we are still making music. And as far as music is concerned, that's the best way we can do it right now. They can sing at home, they can't sing in the classroom. I am speaking tonight to urge you to wait until teachers and staff have the option to vaccinate before reopening. My husband and I have been on the receiving end of low risk statistics. Our daughter died the day before she was due to be born 14 years ago this month. We were told in the hospital that 1% of pregnancies end in stillbirth. This was not a comforting statistic. Mitigating risk does not eliminate risk. And if we could do anything to reverse what happened, we would. And preventing another death is, in my family, what we need to do. I, like many of my colleagues, live with a family member that is at higher risk for developing life-threatening complications from a COVID-19 infection. It is unlikely that my husband, who underwent open heart surgery in April, would survive. Everyone in our education community has been given the choice to take on the risk of exposure to this deadly virus, except the teachers and staff. I urge you to provide teachers with the option to do what is safest for their families, just as the parents in our districts have had. We are so close to making a reopening much safer for all. I've listened tonight to several false comparisons to workers in other fields who are taking on risk, and it makes me sad. Teachers want what is best for our students. We all want to be back in the classroom. I am asking you to treat us with the same measure of respect and consideration as you treat our students' families. Reopening now is safe for most, not for all.
Your 3 minutes is up. Next is Mrs. Capilano.
Hi there. I'm Emily Capilano. Hi. And I'm the president of our certificated union, which is called San Luis Coastal Teachers Association, which represents about 400 educators. And what I wanted to say tonight is, first of all, we have a lot of people that have spoken so eloquently for our students and staff. And what I really want to talk about is, as a union, we're not against reopening. That's where we want to be. We want to be with students, okay, 100%. Okay, that's a falsity if you don't, it's a false notion if you don't believe that. Okay, that's our number one. We're not hiding, no one's hiding behind the union. We're not a stronghold against anyone. It's about safety and health, number one, okay, bottom line. And educators, they want to do this safely. They want to do this safely for you, for your kids, for us, and for our families. Bottom line, that's where it comes. None of us want to be teaching on Zoom. We all want to be in person. We had a wonderful metric, a one that we most of us could feel strong about and believe in. 21 days in red. Our school board changed it from 14 to 21 because they wanted it to be safe for us, for all of us, our families, your students, our students. And now they're willing to change it. It's rushed. We're not ready. They're not ready. Our classrooms aren't ready. I mean, maybe the actual physical desks, but the rest of it isn't ready. I mean, our custodians have been working hard and we have good ventilation, but we don't know where kids are coming and going. We don't know how we're supposed to be doing any of these procedures because it hasn't been explained to us yet. And we're concerned about that. It's been rushed. We were told we'd have a few weeks to get this all under a belt. Right now, elementary members are working on assessments. We're trying to figure out where our students are at so that we can inform you as parents. But we're also now all of a sudden having to rush this reopening, and we're concerned about that. Our members that want to go back so badly, they're like, I do anything to come back, are saying, wait, but we have to do this right. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have serious health issues with our families, and we don't want to risk that. So please just know that when we're talking about this, we're not talking about being selfish. We're talking about being selfless. We're doing this because we care. And I just hope you remember that and don't try to think differently about that, okay? We care about everybody's health and that's what we want. And we want this to be done right. And I sent our comments and our statistics from our recent elementary survey to the board members. And I hope you read those carefully and look at what it is that members are concerned about and attack that. That's where we should be going after. Let's give us a little longer timeline and let's go after the things we're concerned about, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Capilano. Let's see. Next is Jen Smith.
Hi. Okay, making
Jen,
sure I'm here.
Your 3 minutes is beginning now.
Okay, I've got my kids shoved watching TV because my husband is a fire captain who's been working a whole year under this pandemic. So I'm a single parent tonight. I would first like to say thank you for all your continued efforts. Just want to touch on a couple points, being that as a unified school district, we've already successfully had in-person learning for months at half our campuses, in addition to the Spark programs. We just recently opened up at Los Ranchos Elementary for kinder just weeks ago. Our neighboring school districts have brought in subs for those teachers that don't feel comfortable going back, which I understand, but there are ways to work around this. If they can do it, surely San Luis Coastal can figure a way out. Our teachers wanted to follow the science when it came to closing and remaining closed, yet now they no longer want to follow the science. Study after study shows that when guidelines are implemented and adhered to, schools, especially at the younger grades, can safely open. The homework of what precautions to take and what protocols that we need to do to create a safe environment for students and teachers and staff have already been given to us. It's outlined for us. The homework doesn't need to be done. We've had a year to prepare for this. And with the updated guidelines from the CDC and CDPH, we have actually been eligible to open up for weeks now. So we're ready. But I spent my afternoon actually researching what the role of the board is. And time again, oh, sorry, got caught. The role is to advocate for our students. So please keep that in mind, that it is the students that you are representing and that your role is to be responsible for. And as a personal note, I would like to say I have a kindergartner. Hearing him say things like, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I can't do this, I'm not made for this, it breaks my heart. And if there is an opportunity for us to get our kids back into school in person, it needs to be done. It's time. If you aren't comfortable, find a way for the teachers to be represented with substitutes until they are. It's not about, it's about our students, and it's time. We've all been doing our job, and those deemed essential have been doing their jobs in person for a whole year now, unvaccinated. So get on board. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well said, Jen.
We need to mute people who are not speaking. Next up is Brooke Siegler. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, your 3 minutes is beginning right now.
Thank you for taking the time to hear the concerns of the community. My name is Brooke Segler and I teach at Los Osos Middle School. I'm the parent of a 4th grader at Baywood and an 8th grader at Loams. I want to preface this by saying no one wants to safely reopen school sites more than teachers. The San Luis Coastal teachers have poured their hearts and souls into their jobs during this difficult time. Teachers are desperate to return, but only when it's safe. We've heard tonight from community members about how much they appreciate teachers. It's incredibly important to listen to what teachers are saying. I'm gravely troubled that teachers' concerns around safety are falling on deaf ears because of the rushed return. There are 2 crucial safety concerns around returning to on-site schooling that the board must consider. 1, the inability to create stable groups in secondary sites, and 2, the necessity of vaccinations for teachers and support staff before returning to sites. First, in the CDPH mitigation strategies, there are 7 components necessary for a safe return to school on site. However, 3 of those components are deemed the most important. In fact, the CDPH quotes, ordered the list such that the interventions known at this time to be more effective in reducing the risk of transmission appear before the ones that are helpful but may have a potentially smaller effect. Of note, the top 3 items are likely of similar importance, unquote. That is to say that CDPH lists the 3 most important components for reopening schools on site. Those 3 necessary components are face coverings, physical distance, and stable groups. Although San Luis Coastal has addressed the need for face coverings and physical distance, they have not addressed this need for stable groups. The advice from the CDPH recommends that secondary students stay in the same stable group throughout the day. If there is not a plan to form these stable groups in place now, then this plan to return on site is incomplete and rushed. Next, over half of San Luis Coastal elementary teachers surveyed responded that they would not feel comfortable returning to on-site schooling without a vaccine. As a secondary teacher, I would dare to guess that secondary teachers as a group feel even more strongly about being vaccinated before returning to on-site school, since we are in contact with about 5 times as many students as elementary teachers are. Teachers and support staff are not expendable. They should not be compelled to return to on-site teaching without first receiving vaccinations. If returning students to school is a necessity, then vaccinating educators should be of the highest priority. The San Luis Coastal Board has always prided itself on valuing teachers. Don't stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robin Friedman O'Leary. Robin, you are muted. I'll start you as soon as you mute yourself. Okay.
My name is Robin Friedman O'Leary. My husband Brian and I are the parent of 2 high school students at SLO High. I want to begin by saying that between 2 children, we see 12 teachers a week, and I'm impressed with everything they've been doing. It has been nothing short of monumental, and the comments read this evening, many of them disparaging teachers, were greatly upsetting to me because no group has pivoted and done such a great job as teachers. We need to recognize the difference between going back to school for elementary and secondary teachers. The risk is much greater for secondary teachers. Having said that, I think that it is within the best practices to make sure that our teachers go back under the safest conditions. You cannot put students first when teachers' health and safety comes last. We need to recognize that there are new variants of this disease around. And we need to recognize that vaccine is going to help our teachers the most. They not only need to have 2 rounds of vaccine, but CDC guidelines state 14 days post that for best immunity. And the teachers should be afforded that amount of safety and appreciation. I think we need to show all of the respect and care that the teachers deserve by allowing them this time for not only their own health and safety, but the health and safety and mental well-being of their students. They need that time to prepare. We need compliance checks for students and their families, And we need to make sure that the district guidelines are updated frequently to match the scientific guidelines, including double masking for cloth masks, N95 masks, all the appropriate cleanup, all the appropriate social distancing. A parent tonight mentioned how sad it is that their child on Zoom does not have a teacher walking around checking their work. Guess what? That's not going to happen in a COVID safe class either. Teachers cannot be held responsible for everything in a child's life. They are doing the best they can, and we need to appreciate that, and we need to show our care and respect for them by giving them the safest working environment possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hang on just a moment, please. I need to set my timer. Okay, next is Anna Massey.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see, hold on. Good evening, board members. My name is Anna Massey, parent of 2 daughters attending Loams, and I'm a first grade teacher at Pacheco. After careful consideration and many thoughtful conversations, my husband and I decided to choose in-person instruction for our daughters based on the metrics that were approved by the board back in November. The decision was also based on the hope that proper ventilation, thorough cleaning between cohorts, and transportation would be provided. At this time, I am not comfortable sending my daughters to in-person learning with the current proposed metric changes. In addition, based on my personal experience as a classroom teacher, I am still concerned about ventilation and not knowing how much cleaning will be done between cohorts, especially in a bigger school like Loams. As my husband and I are teachers, we will also not be able to take our daughters to school without district-provided transportation. I know this will be a problem for many families as well. Families of some children who desperately need to be in school. As a first grade teacher, I have similar concerns in terms of the change in metrics, ventilation, and cleaning, with additional concerns of not being vaccinated and only being given 1 day to transition from remote teaching to in-person teaching. I would feel safer being vaccinated. For me, it would be one less thing to worry about. It would be like a safety net. Why not wait? Why not wait for us to be vaccinated when we are so close to receiving them? And finally, in my opinion, the major work for returning in person has not been completed. We, the classroom teachers, will need time to plan, modify, change, adapt, develop, and do everything in between to receive our students to the best of our abilities. 1 day of planning is not enough. I want to return to my classroom, and I want to return safely for all involved. I hope you, the board members, listen with your hearts as well as your heads to these concerns that come from a parent and a teacher in this hardworking district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kristen Nussbaum.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting. I just wanted to, after listening to everyone's letters and public speaking, just issue a message for the teachers who are present during this meeting, the teachers who are part of our union, that lead our union, the teachers who can't attend this meeting because doing so causes them stress, the teachers at this moment who are working, creating, prepping, restructuring, programming their content into all hours of the night. As you all know, I'm a high school teacher at SLO High, and I have 3 elementary age children. My children have spent 11 months learning from home while being taught by their fantastic teachers, Kathy Greer, Maya B. Their teachers have put in countless months, like 11, if you can imagine, 11 months, recreating and restructuring their content to suit all of their students via distance digital learning. They deserve our collective thank you. So I was here to offer them all that. Our teachers have exceeded expectation during this once in 100 years global pandemic. I get worked up because I'm a teacher. My sincere appreciation goes out to all of them, as should that of our community. While it's understandable that we all have varying viewpoints regarding the reopening of schools, It should be understood by all of us as a community that we owe our educators and staff members our utmost respect for their dedication and their service. We owe them the chance to be vaccinated before they're required to return to in-person teaching. We're so close to tier 1B educators, part of that tier age aside by county public health. We're that close to having all teachers have access to vaccinations, so close. So we shouldn't rush it, in my opinion. I worry every day about the potential to infect my students when I return. I have 125 high schoolers that switch between 6 classes, 3 classes every day. Equally, I worry about them infecting me. I have to trust that they maintain safe practices since they're older, but are not yet old enough to be vaccinated. As has been said many times tonight, we're not able to maintain stable groups at the secondary level. That's a huge concern, as well as a notable risk to secondary students and teachers. I worry about infecting my children, my parents, my siblings, my husband, even my dog. That's why I've sheltered at home for nearly a year while teaching, parenting, and offering supplemental teaching to my kids. I can't bear to say that I have homeschooled my children. It's far from it, really. Their teachers have gone above and beyond to create their positive classroom environments, their caring tones, and the support network for my children, even while teaching and offering speech services over Zoom and Google Meet.
Thank you, Mrs. Nussbaum. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Is there someone named Motak?
That's me. It's Kiara.
Oh, okay.
What's your full name for the record?
Yeah, could we have a name?
Kiara Mota.
Okay, thank you. Okay, your 3 minutes is beginning now.
Okay, I'm a full-time student and I'm a full-time mother. And as I was hearing everything and everyone say the pros and cons, if CDC is saying that you guys should be opening already, and I understand that the teachers have their doubts in the vaccination and everything, but this is about the students. Like, they're frustrated. My son has ADHD. He gets to the point where he hits himself in the head and says, I'm retarded. And he cannot, like, he can't do this. They can't do that. I can't even do it. I'm in Allen Hancock and I do it for 3 hours in one class and I'm lost. And if I'm 24 and my son is 7, like, you guys don't see it. Like, you guys had everybody saying that, oh, we're rushing it. No, you guys had a lot of months to create the plan and see and how you were going to do this when the time was right. They're saying the time is right now, so you guys need to act already. Because like I said, my kid's falling behind and behind and behind and behind. And then when you finally want to open up, they're going to be so behind. The assessments are going to be no use because they're so behind. Like, it's so frustrating as a mother. And I know I'm speaking for a lot of mothers out there. We cannot do what teachers do. We're not at that level. We didn't go to school for that. Like, you guys have to understand us. Like, it's not a daycare. No, we don't want our kids to be dumb and feel dumb and say that they're dumb because they're not. They're the future. And you guys should be treating them like, the future should be in class. The future should be learning. The future should be happy. The future shouldn't be frustrated and crying and staring at staring at a screen for 20 minutes and thinking, oh, wow, like, they learned so much. No, they didn't. Like, and I'm at the point where it's so frustrating and I'm frustrated for them and everybody's frustrated. My kids play out 24/7 outside and with their mask on, with gloves, hand sanitizer, they come wash their hands. They know how to follow simple steps. And I know in school they would be able to follow simple steps as cover your mouth, wash your hands, carry sanitizer, don't get too close, relax, back up. Like, simple things they will know how to follow because they've been doing it at home for months after months. In March, it'll be a year. Like, and I feel that that was significant time for you guys to find a plan for when now that they need to go back, you guys should be like, okay, yeah, it's time. Not, oh, it's rush. It's not rush. It's time.
Thank you very much. Next is Mila Voyevich-Labar.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Prater and Holly Warwick, our SLC USD guru for COVID. I applaud the opportunity to speak here tonight. I've worked for 37 years for the San Luis Coastal Unified School District, and I've never seen teachers work harder. I do not see the current plan as being tangible, although I really appreciate Dr. Prater's love for students and love for all the families and all the parents that wrote the letter in. Currently at the middle school level, we have a 5-minute passing period that we are supposed to, again, welcome students, provide for the ingress, egress of those students, clean the classroom, and go to the bathroom. That is not tangible. In the district safety plan, that everybody had to take recently, it says that student desks or chairs will be 4 feet apart, although we're supposed to keep students 6 feet apart. That needs to be revisited. I also see a lack of ventilation on our campuses. It has been ongoing for over 20 years. It is marginally improved. I've taught from campus whenever I can the last couple of months, and I have not seen a severe improvement. The other issue that I see is everybody should be concerned about those that are not succeeding, and there is a need for busing. We have, again, our students, again, that may have issues because their parents are working with getting to school. And so if we're trying to open the school to help students, again, that are suffering, we need to make sure that we look at how are they even going to get to school. Also has been brought up by many of the other speakers. My bottom line is vaccinate, then educate. I was diagnosed COVID positive January 11th. I was diagnosed again on January 21st and again on the 29th. And there's nothing worse than putting your head on the pillow, wondering how your breathing is going to be the next morning or how you or your family members are going to be. I would never forgive myself if I subjected any of my staff members or students to what I felt the last month. So I feel that we are better than this. Again, San Luis Obispo is filled with 67% of our parents being college educated. We are smarter. We can come up with a good plan. We need to take a deep breath and not reopen right now for elementary or for secondary until people really go into the trenches and really see what the day-to-day life is for the teachers. I have spent a lifetime worrying about the mental and physical health of students, both with substance abuse and with other issues. I have an enormous capacity for, again, the mental and emotional help of
Thank you, Miley. Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Next is Eric Langlis.
Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Your 3 minutes is beginning.
Okay, actually, sorry. So this is Bethany Langlis. I'm so sorry. I know. Thank you. I missed my turn earlier because I was putting my kids to bed. So, oh gosh, that's a bad light. Sorry about that, guys. You guys all know me. I am a registered nurse and mother of 6-year-old twin boys. You have heard a lot from me over the last several months. I am the mom who started the petition that was sent to you to reopen our school districts, or reopen at least for K-6 based on the new CDC CDPH guidelines. And I think, what I want to say quickly is what I've heard so much tonight is that parents and teachers, we both want the same thing. We are on the same team. We are on the same side with the same goal. Both teachers, we want teachers and students safely back in the classroom, and the health and safety of both of those groups is of the utmost priority to everybody. That is very clear. It's also very clear that we have a plan to do that that is supported by local, state, and national guidelines. We have an abundance of data showing the spread of COVID-19 in the classroom is minimal and can be successfully mitigated by following those guidelines. And we have our own data within our district that shows that we have done it and had zero spread in our pilot programs. We also have local, state, and national organizations calling for immediate reopening of our schools. We have state law that requires local educational agencies to offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. We have the CDC, CDPH, AAP, Dr. Fauci, WHO. I could go on and on. I know you guys know that stand behind this recommendation to reopen our schools. We have even more data showing the significant detrimental effects that distance learning is having on our children. We as parents have all seen it. The high failure rates, increased mental health crisis, and the disengagement from our children are rampant. We know that the prolonged school closures are significantly impacting the future education, income, and propensity for substance abuse and chronic health conditions of our children. And we also know that distance learning is not working, despite the best and phenomenal efforts of all of our teachers in the district who have, I'm going to start crying, but worked tirelessly. And we all know that to make this the best it could be for everybody involved. So we also know that our community meets the required guidelines set by the CDC and CDPH to reopen. Our case rate today was 15.6, which is well below the threshold required to reopen. And with all that said, regardless of how anybody may personally feel about those guidelines or recommendations or what their opinion is, we meet those guidelines, and we as a community have to follow the science. Not following the science is what got us into the situation we are in right now. I also want to remind you of the board.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Next would be Sarah Flickinger.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, my name is Sarah Flickinger. I am a parent of a 5th grader in the district. Thank you to our board for taking on this decision and hearing all of the different sides. And thank you to all the teachers who are working so hard for our students. When you do, if and when you do move forward with reopening, I support testing of staff and students at a higher frequency, as was mentioned previous in the meeting. And for allowing adequate prep time for our teachers as they transition back into the classroom. I also support waiting until after our staff and teachers have had the opportunity to vaccinate and have their 14-day protection kick in before they return to the classroom. And they shouldn't be penalized if they want to wait for that to happen. For some of us, returning is not an option regardless until all of the members of our family have been effectively vaccinated. So ours isn't the only family in this position with high risk categories in the household. And we need a proactive plan for ensuring that students who do remain in virtual learning for whatever reason, that they are still integrated to the extent possible with their peers. We need specific plans to ensure against othering of these students by teachers, admins, and peers, especially prior to these students' eventual return and reintegration with their classmates. And maybe it's next year, maybe it's a little further down the road, we don't know. In my child's words, kids can be really mean. And so as an adult who has experienced disability discrimination in the community, it's hard, and we need to have a proactive plan in place to make sure that these students are included both in this time when they are separate, as well as positively reintegrated when they do return with their peers. My child also wanted me to mention that the distance learning students would do well to have some more virtual social interaction time, like a virtual recess, to help with feeling connected with the other kids and keeping the distance learning feeling more like school while they continue to do that. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate your taking into consideration all the different views that have been expressed tonight.
Thank you. Next is T. Kalpakoff.
Hi, my name is Taya Kalpakoff. I'm
Sure.
a freshman at SLO High School, a freshman. And no student opinion has been shared yet, so I just wanted to represent the student body, or at least those who agree. I am a type 1 diabetic and my family is high risk, and we've had max one person in our pod since March, so we've been very careful. But my main sport's volleyball, and I've participated in volleyball tournaments across the coast, and I wear a mask or 2 masks, and no cases have occurred, and it was wonderful. We got to interact safely. So today I was on the phone ordering a new pair of running shoes, and I spoke with a man at customer service, and I was excited when I got off the phone. I miss interacting with people, truly anyone. The strain on my family is evident, and I truly believe we're at a better mental state than most. I love and appreciate my teachers and everyone at SLC USD, but I've had many conversations with my teachers, and oftentimes I've heard, this isn't what I signed up for. Teaching over Zoom is not what this is not what they signed up for. This is not what they want to do. And I understand those that are high risk and do not want to put themselves at risk. But there is that other part of teachers that want to go back to school. They dream of going back to school. So I implore SLC USD to find a way to help our teachers do what they desire, have those who desire to go back and those who don't to be able to help the kids perhaps who don't want to go back. I support allowing the opportunity for kids and students that desire to go back to school. Let us shed some tears of joy. We haven't had those in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Taya. Next is Robin's iPhone.
Robin, I'm gonna try to unmute your phone here, so hold on one second. See if you have a pop-up on your phone there, asking you to unmute. Okay, looks like we are not getting Robin's iPhone unmuted.
Okay.
We have next is Carly's iPhone.
Okay, actually, next I have Mackenzie Garcia.
My apologies.
That's okay. Mackenzie Garcia, please.
Okay.
Mackenzie, your 3 minutes is beginning.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and for considering the reopening of school. I would like to say, as a minority family in San Luis Obispo District, that I feel like we have ignored our population of students who are severely suffering, and many of those students are the minority students in our district. A lot of our parents don't speak English, therefore there is no homework help. Both parents are working full-time normally with 1 to 2 jobs apiece. Children are left at home all day with a grandparent who might be 80 years old. And when it comes to secondary students who are being supervised by an adult not quite qualified to supervise, that can lead to other situations. We are in desperate times right now with our families in San Luis Obispo. We need to open our schools as soon as possible. The suicide rates in California are through the roof. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but it really scares me. Suicide is something that students and teenagers can accomplish without us really knowing that that's what they were considering. And right now, it is a desperate time. We have to open our schools. We have to open our schools. We have to start our athletics. We have to give these people their lives back. Our teenagers deserve better than to be on the screen for 10 hours a day. We are not rushing this. In fact, we are not opening soon enough. Please, I am begging you to please open our schools for the sake and the safety of all of our students. Please open our schools. There is no reason at this point to have them closed.
Thank you very much. Next is Carly's iPhone, please.
Yes, thank you for letting us have our voice. I do feel voices through our community have not been heard. We have now been seeing schools been open across the country, and we are seeing it done well in safe measures. Kids are being left behind in California, especially in our school district. We are seeing private schools implementing it. We have seen different models being implemented, and we are stalling. We will be coming up to a year, as we all know. We have the options to open in safe ways. I believe the parents deserve a choice. We deserve the choice if we feel comfortable sending our kids back. And if parents don't feel comfortable, they deserve the option to continue with virtual. But a choice needs to be had. And that is where the freedom of our society lays. And without the choice, You are dictating what is safe for our kids and what we believe is not. I believe we can go back safely. I believe we have enough science out there to implement this. With the vaccine, we have the choice of teachers if they want to choose that route, but we deserve the choice. And I don't think we have had a choice for the last 11 months. And with the collaboration with our health and our studies, it comes down to a choice. And this is where I stand. And I know many other parents that I have been chatting with stand as well.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Carly's iPhone, what is your full name for the record?
Yeah, Carly, can you tell us your whole name?
It's Carly Melhughes.
Thank you. Next is Amanda Lake.
Hi, I worked in this district for 9 years. I was dreading this moment. Carly, you're totally right. I think that people deserve a choice, and like right now, I feel like I don't have a choice. I think something that I really want the parents here to know is that the teachers want to go back too. You're right, this is horrible. This has been the worst part of my career. I love teaching and I do not right now. However, I worry about, of course, I don't want to get sick. Of course, it's frustrating knowing that we're so close. Like the vaccines are here and we just like don't have them. A friend of mine in Texas, you're right, the super spreading isn't happening the way that they thought it would, but teachers do get sick from students who don't socially distance because they're 13. And my friend's husband ended up in the hospital. And like, my husband has latent TB. And I'm like, if I get sick, that's one thing, but like, I want to keep my family members safe too. And I want to go back, but like more than anything, I want my family to be safe. And even if only a couple people get sick, it's still not worth it to me. And we talk about a culture of care a lot in this district. And right now, I just want to say thank you to all the parents and other teachers who have spoken. It's really hard. I'm shaking right now. And I just want a choice. And I appreciate the work that this district does. I appreciate working here. I appreciate that we've been able to be distanced. But please, please. I think that's all for me.
Thank you, Amanda. Next is Nick G.
Hello, my name is Nick Gray. I'm a junior at Morrow Bay High School. I just wanted to start off just with the most thanks for all of my teachers. The work that they do is really incredible. Although I just kind of wanted to touch on more student-based ideas. Over the last 11 months, I've seen one of my close friends almost kill themselves. I've never had self-harm thoughts before this year. The distance learning is killing me. I don't know how to describe it other than eating my mental health. Aside from that, I implore the district to allow teachers the option to not go back. Allow anyone the option at this point to not go back. But for the people that want to go back, it's extremely important. I really can't express enough just how tiring, frustrating this is. I don't feel ready for college. I don't feel ready for SATs. I don't know if colleges are going to require SATs. I don't know what I'm going to do. And without in person, I can't learn from a screen. I can't learn from a Zoom screen. And I just hope that I'm speaking for students right now. The other thing is that my whole family doesn't have the option to stay home. We're all essential workers. We've been exposed through the whole pandemic. I don't have the option for the vaccine. my mom's a nurse, but no one else has the option for the vaccine. I think it's hard, but I really don't have anything other to say. I thank my teachers a lot.
Thank you very much, Nick. Next would be Allison Graves.
Hi, I just wanted to make a brief comment in case I do think the school district has a great plan in place that you've been working on for a year, and it doesn't feel rushed to me at all. I feel like it is going to be a little bit tempting, perhaps, to hear the argument of the vaccine is here. Can we just wait a little longer because the vaccine is here and that will make all the difference in the world? And I'm a huge proponent of getting the vaccine if and when you have the opportunity to. But I also know a lot of people won't make that decision. They will choose not to get the vaccine. And it's not going to be this immediate cure-all that now, you know, everyone will be vaccinated and we'll go back to this utopia of the world of before coronavirus. So I would just hope that the board members will think about, you know, the arguments that were put in place over the summer, and then the arguments, you know, in November when you met again, it was like, we just need better metrics. And now we need a vaccine. The logic to continue to keep schools closed keeps changing. And it's tempting arguments because it's scary stuff. But if we keep changing the metrics, our kids will never get to go back. And at some point, we do have to make this decision and figure out how to do it. And individuals make their choices. And I don't think there's any school district that exists anywhere that would not have an option for an employee to take a leave of absence or choose not to return to the classroom if that's what they needed to do for their own safety. So, you know, we need to keep in mind everyone does make their own choices. I work for a healthcare company, and we had some of our staff who chose not to continue to work because they were worried. That's a decision teachers will have to make as well, but we can't keep kicking the can down the road and letting our children's education continue to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Rachel Kovetsky, Kovsdy. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm not Rachel, I'm her daughter, Katie. Catherine
Katie.
Kovetsky. Yeah, however you want to call it. I'm a junior at SLO High, and I just want to say, just like, thank you for like the staff. The staff of this district has been amazing. I honestly couldn't I couldn't describe it in words how amazing they are, but I just feel like we'll never really know what everyone else is going through. We're all having our own experiences with the virus, and I just can't imagine how like other people are feeling right now. So I can only really speak for myself and my situation. But so yes, there are people that are definitely wanting to go back. And I feel like there shouldn't be the need just to have all of us go back to school, or all of us home. There should be an option. There isn't just two choices. There can be an in-between. And I just think realistically, like also for teachers too, like just if they want to stay home and if they feel the need to stay home in order to stay safe, they should have the liberty to do that. And if they feel the need to go to school, and if everyone is like their mental health isn't surviving because they're at home and they need to go to school, they should be able to do that. I just feel like it should be a choice in between, like if we're gonna do online learning or in-person learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is, did we ever get Robin's iPhone?
No, and they lowered their hand as well.
Okay. We have something here noted as Galaxy Note 8. Who might that be?
There you go. You're unmuted now.
Okay.
And please state your name.
Yeah, can you state your name, please? Whoever Galaxy Note 8 is should be unmuted.
Three, two, one. Okay.
No luck? You know, I'm going to come back to you in a bit. Hold on. I'm going to mark that. Next is Liz Wilson. Liz?
Hi. Hey, everybody. Thank you. This is Liz Wilson. I've got a freshman and a junior at Morrow Bay High, and I appreciate everything that you are all doing. I know you're also 3 hours and 40 minutes into this meeting, and I appreciate all of the time and energy this is taking from everybody. I also teach parent participation and used to teach when the kids were younger in the CMR. And I just, being an educator and being a parent and seeing my high schoolers and then also parent participation, alumni families reaching out to me and asking for support. And now I'm kind of like counseling them because they're struggling because their children are in elementary school. I think that the parameters that you all set in November and opening up are well worth continuing. And regardless of the 21 days in the red tier, we are ready, and the parents have decided whether they want to stay virtual through June or not. We're committed to going back if they didn't want to stay virtual. And also the teachers were given that option if they had health issues or if they live with somebody that have health issues and they want to stay a virtual learning teacher until June. And so please just give us the chance to open up March 2nd, March 9th, March 15th, and try this, because we all do know that other states have opened up, and we are not seeing a high risk with the children ages 4 through 18. And we just really are struggling as a family and as a community. We have low numbers, and it's just time to trust what you are doing in regards to ventilation and masks and cleanliness and hand sanitizer and hybrid and all the, the key words. And please just recognize that it's been 11 months and the kids do not like the Zoom and the parents do not like the Zoom. And I don't want to go over my 3 minutes. So thank you for listening. And I really appreciate everything you're doing. It's a hard time. It's a hard job, but I'm so sad that we just haven't opened up. And I struggle with my families that are seniors in high school and having this whole year be remote. It's just really distracting. Thank you, Nick Gray, for what you said. That really, hits me hard. I've known you for a long time, and it's time to give it a try. If we close, we close, but at least we've tried. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Next is Cindy Dixon.
Thank you, Liz. Next is Cindy Dixon.
Cindy Dixon, please. Cindy, are you there? We're not seeing
Right, yes,
Cindy.
I'm here.
Oh,
I
thank you,
can't
Cindy.
show my video. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
For some reason, it's not allowing me to.
How about now?
All right, let me start my video here. Hi, my name is Cindy Dixon. I am a teacher at Baywood Elementary. I teach, this year I'm an EL specialist. I'm also a 3rd grade math teacher. I teach reading intervention and math intervention as well. And I have had the absolute pleasure of seeing a lot of our students come back in small groups in our pods, and really seeing the benefits of them being supervised by staff members, and how that has actually, just in, 3-4 weeks time has really shown that these students are able to do what they can do and show us what they know if they have access. So I'm all for coming back in person and having our kids come back in our hybrid model. Yet I also feel that teachers need to be vaccinated, and that needs to be a priority. And if teachers feel that they're not comfortable coming back without vaccinations, that should be honored as well. But I'm all for kids coming back as long as everyone is safe. I understand that the science behind it all shows that kids aren't transmitting COVID. Yet, what about our teachers and our staff and the exposure that they are exposed to daily because all of these students are coming back onto campus? So thank you for your time. And I appreciate you considering the fact that keeping teachers safe is just as important as bringing kids back to school.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm sorry, Lisa Algren, please.
Hi there. My daughter Ava wants to say something.
Hi, I'm Ava. I'm 7 years old and I'm having a really hard time being on Zoom. I am a smart student and gets all A's, but I'm having a hard time learning on Zoom. I need to see my teacher and my friends in person. I want to be back in my class too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. Next is Lena Egan.
Hi, I'm Lena Egan. I've got a 9th grader at SLO High School and a 6th grader at Teach. Just wanted to say science plus politics equals politics. And science can be used, and unfortunately, and politics can be used in however we want it to be used. What I wanted to say is our district's mitigation efforts over the past several months have been remarkable, and they meet CDPH and CDC guidelines. In fact, in the CDC guidelines that came out on Friday, San Luis Obispo County would actually be in the second to lowest tier, which would allow full in-person instruction for elementary and secondary. November was our last decision date for families to choose to go back for in-person. The FDA did their emergency use authorizations for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines in December, so a month later. So the safety procedures that were in place in November still exist. The vaccinations for teachers is nice to have, and CDC does not require vaccinations for teachers before reopening. I do agree that they should be in the priority groups, but it should not be something that would delay reopening for our students. I also acknowledge that the secondary school teachers have higher exposure risks than elementary school. I think an additional layer of protection for the secondary teachers would be routine screening testing of staff more frequently and routine screening testing of students. Routine screening testing is what we are doing in the film industry with film crews working closely with one another. And it's a way to prevent COVID transmission. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Next is Ava Algren.
I believe she already went.
Oh, I think that Ava's already gone. So
Yeah,
we
that was
move on.
that. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next would be Michelle Medawar, please.
Thank you. This is actually her daughter, Catherine Fricks. I'm a senior from San Luis Obispo High School. First of all, again, I'd like to say thank you to the teachers and the staff and the administration for continuously looking out for us students. I honestly don't know how you guys do it. You guys have done an incredible job the past 11 months. I'd just like to touch base with, you know, as a senior, I've missed a lot of activities. I've missed sports, clubs, but none of it really compares to what I know other students are experiencing right now. I know there are kids who are crammed in their room with siblings in their other Zoom classes. I know that there are kids in the living room trying to study on or take tests on Zoom, but instead also have their parents doing Zoom work as well. I know that in one of my classes, there was a student who was trying to teach their friend's kid some spelling bee words to help out, but also how to study for classes. So, I mean, every student's circumstance is different, and I just really hope you guys recognize that. And, you know, at the end of the day, I respect your guys' decision with whichever way you decide to go for this. I know you're doing the best you can, and you guys have done a great job. So again, I really appreciate all the time and effort you've been taking to make sure that we could go back safely and just taking every precaution very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing anyone else. So I'm going to close public comment at this time on this issue, on this matter. Hang on just a moment, please. It's about 10 till 9 right now. We're going to take a 10-minute break and the board will come back and then the board will discuss this issue. Thank you very much. We'll see you at 9 o'clock.
I'm just gonna plug this in real quick.
Clean dishes as
we're still waiting for the rest of the board members. So as soon as we get a quorum, we will continue the meeting. All right, we're going to begin. Mrs. Frame will be joining us shortly. Before I take it back to the board, I do want to ask if there's anyone who needs translation services right now. If you would, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to bring it back to the board. And before I do, again, I just wanted to thank the over, I believe, 75 people who addressed the board, both with written comments and verbal comments tonight. I want to assure you that the board listens closely to everything that you say and considers all of your words as we will make this difficult decision. So that said, I'm going to bring it back to the board and see who would like to start the discussion. Catherine, Dr. Eisendrath-Rogers, followed by Mr. Buckman. You know what, I'm gonna go, well, hold on, please. Got a couple of people on mute.
You're now unmuted.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Eisendrath-Rogers, followed by Mr. Buckman.
What keeps coming to mind is one of the letters that I read from a gentleman who was a teacher in New Jersey. His name is Dan Clancy. And I just wanted to, there's something that's very compelling to me about what he has to